We all know Pikachu was Ash's starter. These two have been together since the very beginning, traveling through multiple regions, fighting in hundreds of battles, and literally saving the Pokemon universe more times than we can count. The bond they share is unimaginably strong. But in Kalos, there was another Pokemon with a strong bond phenomenon, Greninja. So let's imagine, what if Greninja was Ash's day one partner instead of Pikachu? How would the story change? How would his journey play out? Let's find out in today's video. Before the start of Ash's journey, let's bring Froakie all the way from Kalos to Kanto. Froakie had a habit of rejecting trainers and was abandoned multiple times, so Professor Sycamore brought it to Professor Oak for examination. And Pikachu, let's say it was given to some other trainer by Professor Oak. Okay, now our story starts off the same as usual. Ash is watching TV the night before he's about to become a Pokemon trainer. The events follow similarly as Ash destroys his alarm clock and wakes up late. He immediately rushes to Professor Oak where all of the starters have already been taken. Ash asks if there is any Pokemon left, and Oak says there is one, but it has a major problem. Ash, without thinking for even a second, demands it, and Oak gives him Froakie. Ash is confused because he's never seen this Pokemon before. Oak tells him that it's from a faraway region called Kalos, and that it's a water-type Pokemon, which makes Ash very happy since his original choice was Squirtle. Getting a unique water type was more than he could ask for. However, Froakie still does not trust Ash, just like Pikachu didn't at first. Now, the start of Ash's journey goes quite similarly. Froakie does not trust him and refuses to listen, and the events play out almost the same, ultimately leading to the Spearow incident. Just like in canon, the Spearow call for backup and begin attacking Ash and Froakie. Ash quickly realizes he's in serious trouble and needs to escape. He tries the idea of putting Froakie into its Pokeball, but Froakie refuses. The two of them spot a waterfall and jump in to escape the Spearow. At the end of the river, Ash is saved by Misty, who is completely confused about why a kid just came flying out of the water with a Pokemon she's never seen before. Ash explains that this is his first day as a Pokemon trainer, that a bunch of Spearow attacked him and Froakie, and that he needs to find the nearest Pokemon Center. Misty points him in the direction of the nearest city, and just like in the original, Ash takes her bike. Now, similar to canon, when Ash tries to protect Froakie by shielding it, he earns Froakie's trust. With the boost from the rain, Froakie generates a massive water pulse that repels all the Spearow. And just like in canon, they both see Ho-Oh. Ash arrives in Viridian City and heads straight to the Pokemon Center to heal Froakie. The events follow similarly to canon, except instead of Pikachu, Team Rocket notices this rare Pokemon and decides to steal it, meaning they will continue to pursue Ash. Afterward, on the journey through Viridian Forest, the story follows canon closely. Ash catches Caterpie and Pidgeotto, and the events up until Metapod's evolution remain the same. In this version, I have decided to give Ash his OG Pikachu as well. At the beginning, we said Pikachu was given to some other trainer, so let's say that trainer abandoned Pikachu in Viridian Forest. Seeing the care Ash shows to his Pokemon and how he risks his life for Butterfree, Pikachu decides to follow him. Eventually, Ash notices Pikachu and decides to catch it. He battles Pikachu and successfully catches it, but just like in canon, Pikachu refuses to stay inside its Pokeball. In the end, Ash and Misty leave Viridian Forest and head towards Pewter City. Just like in the anime, Ash encounters Brock's dad, who leads him to the gym to face Brock. This will be Ash's first gym battle against the Rock-type leader, and only one of his Pokemon has a clear advantage, his starter, Froakie, which makes Brock fascinated since he's never seen this Pokemon before. Ash and Brock begin their battle, and this is the toughest fight Ash has faced so far. Froakie goes up against Onix, and even though it has the advantage, Onix hits hard and puts up an incredible fight, eventually defeating Froakie. Just like in the anime, Flint takes Ash to train, but this time, instead of Pikachu, he trains Froakie. The next day, Ash challenges Brock again. This time he defeats Onix, but amidst the chaos, Brock's siblings get upset seeing their brother lose and stop Ash from delivering the final attack. Ash decides not to finish the battle and leaves the gym. However, Brock chases after him and gives him the Boulder Badge anyway. Brock's dad reveals his identity, sees everything that happened, and allows Brock to go on a journey with Ash. And just like that, the original gang is back together, and they set off for their adventure for Ash to collect all 8 gym badges in the Kanto region. The next major city they pass by is Cerulean City, where Ash aims to get his Water-type gym badge. Just like in the original, Misty tries to avoid going to the Cerulean gym, so Ash and Brock head there by themselves. Ash is initially just handed the badge because the gym leaders don't want to battle. They're already tired of losing after being defeated by multiple trainers. But Misty steps in. Unlike Pikachu, Froakie has no emotional attachment to Misty and goes on to completely sweep her team. However, with Team Rocket interfering once again, the battle is left incomplete and Ash is still awarded the badge. Like in canon, Ash meets AJ and challenges him to a battle. Butterfree and Pidgeotto lose to Sandshrew just like before, but when Ash sends out Froakie, AJ is surprised since he's never seen this Pokemon before. Froakie vs Sandshrew turns into a tough and evenly matched battle. Froakie is pushed to its absolute limit and then evolves into Frogadier. The match ends in a double KO, breaking AJ's win streak, and AJ recognizes Ash as a trainer with serious potential. Afterward, Ash encounters the same Bulbasaur from the anime and really wants to add it to his team. Since it's protecting a forest full of injured and abandoned Pokemon, the caretaker of the village admires Ash's kind heart and decides to gift him Bulbasaur so it can grow stronger on its journey. Ash and his team are now getting along really well. While walking down a path, Ash notices a Charmander sitting alone on a rock. It has no trainer because it was abandoned by its previous owner, Damien, for being too weak. Ash and the gang do everything they can to help Charmander. The events play out just like in the anime. Ash shows kindness, proves Charmander's worth, and defeats Damien. Charmander joins Ash and they quickly become best friends. Now Ash's team is looking strong. Frogadier, Pikachu, Charmander, Bulbasaur, Butterfree, and Pidgeotto. Frogadier naturally takes on a leader role within the group, which becomes very important later on as all of Ash's Pokemon start looking up to it in difficult situations. In the next town, Ash encounters the Squirtle Squad, a group of trouble-making Squirtles, but when they meet Ash's Frogadier, they actually connect with it, almost seeing it as a mentor. Because of this, the Squirtle Squad decides to change their ways and help the town instead, which means the iconic Squirtle never joins Ash in this version. Vermilion City plays out the same. Ash loses to Lieutenant Surge in a 1v1 against Raichu. When offered evolution, Pikachu refuses just like in canon. The next day, Ash identifies Surge's weakness, his lack of speed-based strategy, and wins the rematch. Then, the bye-bye Butterfree moment happens just like in canon, and Ash releases Butterfree. At Sabrina's gym, things get brutal. No matter what Pokemon Ash uses, he stands no chance against Sabrina's overwhelming telekinetic powers. Even Frogadier, without its final evolution's dark typing, is defeated. Ash is saved by Sabrina's father, who tells him to catch a ghost type if he wants any chance of winning. At Lavender Town, the events remain mostly unchanged. Ash meets Haunter, who joins him temporarily. In the end, Ash uses Haunter in battle not to fight, but to make Sabrina laugh, earning him the gym badge. However, Haunter doesn't stay with Ash, since it prefers playing pranks over battling, and is better off staying with Sabrina. The events of Celadon and Fuchsia gyms also play out similarly. Ash earns the Rainbow Badge from Erica after saving her Gloom, and wins the Soul Badge with Charmander defeating Golbat. As Ash battles more trainers, his team continues to evolve. Charmander evolves into Charmeleon, but unlike in canon, it doesn't become disobedient. Due to Frogadier's influence, Ash becomes more skilled and disciplined trainer, and Bulbasaur also evolves into Ivysaur during the Bulbasaur evolution ritual. In the original anime, Bulbasaur chose not to evolve, but in this version, it chooses to grow stronger alongside the rest of the team, eventually aiming for Venusaur. And finally, Froakie fully evolves into Greninja. Around this time, the bond phenomenon begins to show early signs, as Ash and Greninja start feeling a strange connection during battles. Soon after, Charmeleon and Pidgeotto evolve into Charizard and Pidgeot respectively. Now Ash's team is looking pretty stacked. But the 8th gym is where things get complicated. Giovanni is the leader of this gym, and his ace Pokemon is Mewtwo. Giovanni has been using this Pokemon to dominate and intimidate any trainer who dares to challenge him. So when Ash arrives at Viridian City Gym to get his final badge, he's actually greeted by Team Rocket instead of Giovanni, since Giovanni left them in charge. And knowing our boy Ash, Team Rocket is light work. He defeats them easily and earns his final gym badge. When Ash and Gary meet at Professor Oak's lab before the Indigo League, they get into an argument. Ash believes a trainer should befriend their Pokémon, while Gary focuses more on catching strong and rare ones, and thinks Ash just got lucky with his. Ash enters the Indigo League and faces Richie in the top 16. In the original anime, Ash lost here because Charizard refused to listen. But in this version, Ash already has Greninja, Venusaur, and a loyal Charizard. Richie's team of unevolved Pokémon and a Pikachu simply can't compete. Ash wins and advances. In the original, Richie lost to a trainer named Asunta, but in this version, Ash faces her instead, and it turns into a tough battle. In the end, it comes down to her Ivysaur versus Ash's Greninja. Ash's inexperience starts costing him the match, but suddenly both Ash and Greninja are pushed to their absolute limits. And then, the bond phenomenon activates. Everyone is shocked. No one expected this. Ash Greninja overwhelms Ivysaur and wins, but immediately collapses from exhaustion. Ash makes it to the top 4 in his first tournament. However, Greninja is unable to battle due to the toll from the previous fight, and without his strongest Pokémon, Ash ends up losing. Still, reaching the top 4 is a massive improvement compared to the original timeline. After the league, Ash releases Pidgeot just like in canon, and heads to Orange Islands. Orange Archipelago Arc. Ash and the gang head toward the Orange Archipelago. Just like in canon, they arrive at Professor Ivy's lab to deliver the GS Ball. Brock instantly becomes fascinated by Professor Ivy and decides to stay behind to help with her research, while Tracy joins Ash and Misty on their journey instead. However, things change when Professor Oak suddenly contacts Ash. Oak explains that due to Greninja's strange transformation during the Indigo League, Professor Sycamore wants to study it further to determine whether it is connected to a completely new form of evolution. Ash hesitates, but eventually agrees and sends Greninja back for research. For the first time since Kanto, Ash is separated from his strongest partner. Soon after, Ash and the gang encounter the same injured Lapras from canon. Ash rescues it, and Lapras eventually joins the team as they continue through the Orange Islands. Ash also participates in the Orange League challenges just like in the anime. In the first battle against Sissy, Ash no longer has Greninja available, forcing him to rely on Lapras for the Water-type challenge. However, Lapras lacks battle experience and loses the first round. Sissy gives Ash one final chance through the Racing Challenge, and just like in canon, Ash manages to win. And for the tiebreaker, both of them battle and Ash owned Sissy. The second challenge against Danny also plays out similarly. Ash loses the first round but makes a comeback in the second. Then, during the sled race, Charizard carries Ash, helping him secure victory once again. Around this time, Ash catches Snorlax, making his Orange Islands team Charizard, Venusaur, Lapras, Pikachu, and Snorlax. Later, Ash encounters Lorelei of the Elite Four. She immediately recognizes Ash as the mysterious trainer who used Greninja in the Indigo League. However, she's disappointed to learn Greninja is currently unavailable. Even so, she agrees to battle Ash, and despite Ash's growth, he still loses. This battle becomes a huge reality check, showing Ash just how massive the gap between him and the Elite Four truly is. Ash continues through the Orange Island and battles Rudy, defeating him fairly comfortably. He also faces Taz, but unlike canon, Ash defeats him pretty easily. Finally, Ash arrives at the last gym. For the double battle, Ash chooses Pikachu and Charizard. Unlike canon, their improved teamwork and synergy allow Ash to win the battle smoothly and claim the final badge needed to enter the Orange League. Before the championship match against Drake, disaster strikes. Just like in canon, Snorlax suddenly falls asleep and cannot battle. Ash now needs 6 Pokémon, but only has 4 available. Luckily, Professor Oak contacts him at the perfect time. The research on Greninja is finally complete. Ash then immediately swaps out Snorlax for Greninja and Tauros. Now Ash is finally ready to face Drake. The battle against Drake is intense. Pikachu starts strong and defeats Ditto. Then Drake sends out Onix, which Venusaur completely overwhelms with ease. Next comes Gengar, which battles Lapras in a fierce match that ends in a double knockout. Drake responds with Venusaur, but just like in canon, Tauros manages to defeat it. Then Drake sends out Electabuzz. Venusaur once again steps up and defeats it, though it becomes heavily exhausted afterward. Finally, Drake sends out his ace Pokémon, Dragonite. Dragonite crushes the weakened Venusaur, and then Tauros. Then it faces Charizard. Charizard gives Dragonite an incredible fight, but ultimately falls. Ash sends out Pikachu and finally finishes it off, meaning Ash's secret weapon, Greninja, was never even needed. Ash officially becomes the Orange League champion. After the Orange League, Ash parts ways with Lapras just like in canon. But before heading to Johto, Ash challenges Gary for a final battle. And this time, things feel different, because unlike canon, Gary trained far harder after seeing Ash reach the top 4 in the Indigo League. Ash sends out Pikachu. Gary responds with Umbreon instead of Eevee and defeats Pikachu with ease. Ash then sends out Greninja, but Gary suddenly stops the battle. He looks directly at Greninja and says he already has something special prepared to deal with that weird Pokémon of Ash's, but he'll reveal it soon. Then Ash heads toward Johto to deliver the GS Ball. Brock rejoins Ash and Misty for the journey, while Tracy decides to remain at Professor Oak's lab as his assistant.
The Johto Journey Arc. While the Orange Island's timeline stayed fairly similar to canon, Johto is where things truly begin to change. Ever since the Indigo League, Ash has constantly tried to recreate the strange transformation he shared with Greninja, but no matter what he does, nothing happens. Still, Ash continues his Johto journey and catches Heracross early on. With Greninja on his team, Falkner and Bugsy are defeated with almost no difficulty. Just like in canon, Ash catches Cyndaquil and Chikorita. However, in this timeline, Totodile is caught by Misty instead. Later on, Ash also catches a shiny Noctowl. Eventually, Ash leaves Venusaur at Professor Oak's lab. At the Charisific Valley, Charizard defeats almost every Charizard there except Charla. Realizing it still has room to improve, Charizard voluntarily decides to stay behind and continue training. Meanwhile, Giovanni has started taking Ash seriously. Because of Greninja's mysterious transformation during the Indigo League, Giovanni orders Jessie, James, and Meowth to stop acting like ordinary Fees and instead keep a close eye on Ash as spies. In the original timeline, Ash struggled badly against Whitney, but here, Greninja absolutely destroys Miltank with zero difficulty. Ash later uses his shiny Noctowl against Morty and manages to secure another clean victory. Seeing how insanely powerful Greninja has become motivates the rest of Ash's Johto team to grow stronger as well. As a result, Cyndaquil evolves into Quilava, Chikorita evolves into Bayleaf. The journey continues similarly from there. The gang arrives in Olivin City where Jasmine is taking care of the sick Ampharos. Afterward, they travel to Chuck's gym and Ash defeats him as well. Then comes the Whirl Islands tournament. For the water Pokemon competition, Ash chooses Kingler and Greninja. And unlike canon, Ash defeats Misty very easily before advancing to the finals and winning the tournament altogether. Ironically, this loss motivates Misty even further, pushing her closer towards her dream of becoming the world's greatest water-type trainer. Ash then proceeds to completely sweep Jasmine's gym, but in Mahogany Town, everything changes. While investigating the Lake of Rage, Ash is suddenly ambushed by Tyson, who was informed about Ash's location directly by Team Rocket. Ash defeats Tyson, but the battle attracts the attention of Lance himself. Lance already knows about Ash, the Indigo League top 4 trainer who possesses a mysterious Pokemon with a strange transformation. Realizing Team Rocket may be involved in something much bigger, Lance decides to work together with Ash. They infiltrate Team Rocket's hideout, only to discover something terrifying. Instead of ordinary grunts waiting for them, Team Rocket has sent 4 admins: Archer, Ariana, Petrel, and Proton. Even with Lance present, the battle quickly becomes overwhelming. Brock and Misty can barely keep up, while Ash and Lance are heavily outnumbered. Then one of the admins says something that changes everything. The mysterious Pokemon will finally belong to Team Rocket.
That single sentence enrages Ash, and at that moment, the bond phenomenon activates once again. Ash Greninja appears. This time, the transformation is far stronger than before. The tide of battle instantly shifts, and Ash alongside Lance manages to defeat all 4 admins. Team Rocket's executives are arrested, but the immense power completely overwhelms both Ash and Greninja, causing them to collapse immediately afterward. After recovering, Ash dominates both Price and Claire, earning his final Johto badges and advancing to the Silver Conference. And unlike Ganon, Ash tears through the tournament, until he reaches the quarterfinals against Gary Oak. But this Gary is far stronger than the one from the anime, because after seeing Ash reach the Indigo League top 4, Gary trained harder than ever before. His team now consists of Scizor, Tyranitar, Arcanine, Gyarados, Alakazam, and Blastoise. Meanwhile, Ash's team is Pikachu, Snorlax, Charizard, Venusaur, Heracross, and Greninja. The battle begins with Scizor versus Pikachu. The fight is evenly matched, but Gary suddenly switches into Tyranitar. Ash responds with Venusaur, expecting a type advantage. But to Ash's shock, Tyranitar defeats Venusaur. Ash sends Pikachu back out, and Pikachu barely manages to take down Tyranitar before becoming heavily fatigued. Ash withdraws Pikachu and sends in Charizard. Gary answers with Gyarados. A massive clash between Flamethrower and Hydro Pump erupts across the battlefield, and after an intense struggle, Charizard barely defeats Gyarados. Then Gary sends out Alakazam. Ash switches Charizard out and chooses Snorlax, but unlike Ganon, this Snorlax is much weaker due to receiving far less battle experience throughout the journey. Snorlax loses. Ash sends Heracross next, but due to type advantage and speed, Heracross falls as well. Gary then recalls Alakazam and sends Scizor back out. Ash responds with Pikachu, but surprisingly, Scizor defeats Pikachu too. Now desperate, Ash sends Charizard back into battle. Charizard manages to defeat Scizor and then Alakazam despite already being exhausted. Finally, Gary sends out his ace Pokémon, Blastoise. But this Blastoise is different. Around its neck is a strange stone Ash has never seen before. Ash asks Gary what it is. Gary simply smirks and says, "Wait, you'll find out soon enough." Blastoise defeats the exhausted Charizard, and now everything comes down to Greninja. Ash sends out his ace, Greninja. Gary looks directly at Ash and says, "Now I finally figured out how to counter your Pokemon's transformation." Then, Blastoise Mega evolves. The entire stadium is stunned. Ash and Greninja struggle badly against Mega Blastoise. Ash even tries triggering the bond phenomenon again, but nothing happens. Mega Blastoise prepares its finishing move, Hydro Cannon. And just before the attack lands, something clicks between Ash and Greninja. Greninja transforms. Ash Greninja returns at full power. Now the battle becomes even. Mega Blastoise and Ash Greninja exchange devastating attacks across the entire battlefield. Finally, Mega Blastoise fires one last Hydro Cannon. Ash responds with a giant Water Shuriken. The two attacks collide. A massive explosion consumes the stadium. Smoke fills the battlefield. Slowly, both Pokémon are revealed standing weakly. Then suddenly, Blastoise collapses. Ash wins. The stadium erupts in cheers. Ash runs towards Greninja, but before he can reach him, both Ash and Greninja collapse unconscious. A week later, both finally wake up, but because they remained unconscious for so long, Ash is officially disqualified from the Silver Conference. And strangely, Ash doesn't regret it at all, because that battle against Gary was the greatest battle of his life. Later, Ash asks Gary about the strange power that he used. Gary reveals that he used Mega Evolution, which is due to the Mega Stone from Kalos which he imported specifically to counter Greninja's mysterious transformation, since the two powers seem strangely similar. Hearing this completely fascinates Ash. Return to Kanto. After completing their Johto journey, Ash and the gang, along with Gary, made their way back to Pallet Town. What they found there, however, was far from the peaceful homecoming they had expected. Officer Jenny was overseeing a large-scale investigation, and the streets were tense with activity. The group approached her to find out what had happened. Jenny's answer was grim. Team Rocket had launched a coordinated attack on the town, kidnapping several civilians, and among those taken was the renowned Professor Samuel Oak. Before anyone could process the news, Tracy appeared, limping toward them with an injured hand. He explained what had unfolded. Team Rocket had arrived without warning and attacked everyone in sight. Professor Oak had stepped forward to fight them off, but a mysterious man appeared and defeated him single-handedly. Tracy had fought alongside Oak, but the two of them stood no chance. Oak sacrificed himself so that Tracy could escape, though Tracy was badly injured during the chase. Then, with a heavy voice, Tracy delivered the news that hit Ash the hardest. Delia Ketchum had also been taken by Team Rocket. Ash was already furious, but hearing about his mother pushed him over the edge. Without a word, he turned and walked out of Pallet Town. He had no clear destination in mind, but his legs kept moving. The gang hurried after him, pleading with him to stop and think. Then, like a spark in the dark, a memory surfaced, the confrontation with Team Rocket at Viridian Gym. He changed direction immediately and headed for Viridian City. The moment they arrived, the gang was caught in a trap, and Giovanni stepped out of the shadows flanked by several grunts. A slow smile spread across his face. "Finally," he said, "that mysterious Pokémon will be mine." He moved toward Ash and snatched the Pokéballs from him, though he left Pikachu behind without a second glance. Just a small Pokémon, not worth his time. Ash, the gang, and the other hostages were thrown into a cell deep within the gym. Inside, Ash found his mother and Professor Oak. Despite everything, seeing them alive and unharmed brought him a moment of relief. It didn't last long before the cell door swung open. The grunt standing there pulled off his helmet. It was Gary. He had planned this from the start. He had been following the group as well, and when they headed towards the gym, something felt wrong to him. Gary had his own history with Mewtwo and Team Rocket, and his instincts told him this was a trap. So he contacted Officer Jenny, knocked out a grunt, stole his uniform, and worked his way to the cell. Gary also confirmed that the police were already on their way. As the group made their way from the cell up through the gym, chaos erupted around them. Officers clashed with Rocket grunts on every floor. In the middle of all the commotion, Ash ran into a familiar trio, Jesse, James, and Meowth. But rather than picking a fight, they did something unexpected. They handed Ash back all of his confiscated Pokémon and told him that Giovanni was at the top of the gym, preparing to escape by helicopter. Greninja, however, was still with Giovanni. Ash didn't hesitate. They reached the rooftop to find Giovanni standing beside a large machine, the same kind that had once been used to capture Mewtwo, and Greninja was connected to it. Ash called out to his starter and stepped forward, but Greninja turned and attacked. Pikachu intercepted with a thunderbolt, and Ash stood there stunned. He tried reasoning with Greninja, talking to him, reaching out, but Greninja was completely under Giovanni's control. Giovanni laughed as his helicopter descended. "Come on, Greninja," he said, turning to leave. Ash ran after them. Giovanni, losing patience, ordered his golem to attack. Gary's Blastoise stepped in and blocked the hit, and just like that, Gary and Giovanni were battling. Misty and Brock quickly jumped in to support Gary, but it wasn't enough. Giovanni was in a different league entirely, and he dismantled all three of them without much effort. When Giovanni turned and gave Greninja the final order to finish things, Pikachu leapt in to intercept, but Ash threw himself between the two attacks. The collision sent him crashing to the ground, critically injured. Everything changed in that moment. Greninja's eyes cleared. The sight of Ash lying hurt on the ground broke through every layer of Giovanni's control. Greninja turned on the machine and tore itself free using an incomplete surge of the bond phenomenon, raw, unstable power born from the bond between Ash and his first Pokémon. But as quickly as it flared, it faded. With Ash down, the bond couldn't hold, and Greninja reverted to its base form. Giovanni, furious, pressed his advantage. Even with Pikachu, Greninja, Mega Blastoise fighting together, they couldn't hold back Giovanni's full strength. It looked like the end. Then, a beam of light tore across the rooftop. Lance's Hyper Beam struck Giovanni's Pokémon from the other side, sending them crashing down. Giovanni looked around. His team was gone, his escape route cut off, and the police were closing in from all directions. With no options left, he surrendered. Team Rocket was disbanded. In the aftermath, Jesse, James, and Meowth were quietly set aside from the arrests. Their actions during the crisis had not gone unnoticed. Professor Oak himself stepped in, and rather than seeing them charged, personally hired the trio as his assistants. And slowly, carefully, things in Pallet Town went back to normal.
The new adventure. After everything that had happened, the group went their separate ways. Ash, however, had unfinished business. Mega Evolution had awakened something in him, and he needed answers. His first instinct was Kalos, the region where Mega Evolution had reportedly originated. He went to book his ticket, but the counter turned him away. Team Rocket's recent activities had raised serious safety concerns in Kalos, and all travel routes were suspended indefinitely. Disappointed, Ash turned back toward Pallet Town. On the way, he ran into Brock, who was heading in the opposite direction, toward Hoenn. Brock mentioned that there had been sightings of Mega Evolution in Hoenn, and casually asked if Ash wanted to come along. That was all Ash needed to hear. The two of them headed for the ferry, and thankfully, the route to Hoenn was still open. Before departing, Ash made a quiet but firm decision. He would leave all of his Pokémon behind in Kanto, a fresh start, a clean slate. The next morning, Pikachu was sitting on his bag, refusing to move. Ash smiled and let him stay. He also made another decision. He would not attempt a strange transformation again until he understood it. The toll it took on both him and Greninja was too great to use recklessly. And so, Ash, Brock, Pikachu, and Greninja boarded the ferry to Hoenn. Due to the events in Pallet Town, Ash and Brock were later than in canon, so in this timeline, May had already left. This means May and the annoying Brack don't travel with Ash. Their first stop was Little Root Town, where they met Professor Birch. He got straight to the point. There was a Torchic in his care. Stubborn, uncooperative, abandoned by multiple trainers, including professional breeders and elite trainers alike. Nobody could get through to it. When Bert had reached out to Professor Oak for advice, Oak had pointed him toward Ash. Would he be willing to take the Torchic? Ash took the Pokeball without hesitation. The moment Torchic was released, it made its feelings very clear. It ignored Ash completely, wandered where it pleased, and paid no attention to anyone around it. It was, in simple terms, a spoiled brat. The group moved on toward Petalburg City. At the gym, Ash looked at the 3-on-3 format and quickly did the math. Greninja and Pikachu were far too powerful for a fair gym challenge, and Torchic wasn't listening to him. He decided to skip the battle for now and instead head into Petalburg Forest to catch some Pokémon. It was there that Aralt found him first. She had sensed something from Ash, a powerful aura, and had quietly followed him through the trees. Ash turned around, noticed her watching him, and asked if she wanted to come along. Ralt stepped forward happily and let herself be caught. Back at camp, when Ash released all his Pokémon, Torchic immediately resumed its usual attitude, until it locked eyes with Greninja. Something about Greninja's presence stopped it cold. Ash stepped in before things escalated and began proper training sessions with the whole group. Ash then, like canon, catches both Trico and Tailo. With Greninja naturally taking on the role of mentor, the dynamic shifted quickly. Everyone trained harder. Even Torchic, who had never respected any trainer before, started watching Greninja closely and gradually began following Ash's command. Ash earned his first badge at Rustboro Gym, where Trico, pushed hard by Greninja's influence, had already learned a grass-type move well ahead of schedule and gave Roxanne a difficult battle. Ralts also stepped up and defeated Roxanne's Nosepass cleanly. At Dewford Gym, Ash led with Tailo, who handled Machop with surprising ease. Then came Torchic against Makuhita.
Mid-battle, Torchic started slipping back into its old habits, until Greninja burst out of its Pokeball and gave Torchic a sharp, silent look. Torchic hesitated, then reluctantly began following orders. Then Makuhita evolved into Hariyama and turned the tide completely, battering Torchic until it had nothing left, and then pushed through anyway, triggering its own evolution. Combusken stood up from the ground and fought back. Ash noticed something during the final exchange. Combusken seemed to get a fraction faster with every turn. Brock recognized it immediately. Speed Boost, a rare hidden ability. Combusken's accelerating speed eventually overwhelmed Hariyama, and Ash took his second badge. The next gyms followed smoothly. Against Watson, Pikachu and Trico, who evolved into Grovyle during the battle, handled things efficiently. Against Flannery, Ash used Tailo, Routes, and Combusken. Flannery's Slugma put Tailo to sleep, so Ash switched to Routes, who defeated it. Magcargo then took down an already worn Routes. Combusken came in next, and despite its usual reluctance, snapped into focus the moment it heard a Pokeball click nearby. It defeated both Magcargo and Torkoal, its speed increasing noticeably with each exchange. Then came Norman. Ash chose Grovyle, Pikachu, and Combusken, and lost. He had gone through the entire Hoenn circuit without a single defeat, and the overconfidence showed. In the rematch, Ash swapped in Greninja for Grovyle. Combusken handled Slackoth and Vigoroth, but slacking stopped everything cold, taking down both Combusken and Pikachu. It all came down to Greninja. The two had a fierce back and forth, and somewhere in the middle of that battle, Combusken, watching from the sideline, made a decision. It respected Ash. It respected Greninja. When the moment came, Greninja moved in sync and brought slacking down. Against Winona, Tailo evolved mid-match and swept the gym alongside Pikachu. The Groudon and Kyogre conflict unfolded, but like nothing that had come before. Both the Red Orb and Blue Orb had been claimed by the legendaries themselves, triggering their primal forms. The battle between them was catastrophic. Ash, Lance, Maxie, and Archie all tried to intervene, but were completely outmatched by the raw power of two primal legendaries in full fury. Steven Stone arrived and joined the effort. Still, nothing worked. Steven Mega evolved his Metagross. Lance Mega evolved his Dragonite. Together, the combined force still couldn't stop them. Ash, despite his promise to himself, attempted the Battle Bond in desperation, and failed. The connection wouldn't come. Then, from high above, a green light cut through the storm. Mega Rayquaza descended, and with overwhelming force, silenced both Groudon and Kyogre. The legendaries retreated and the crisis ended. In the calm that followed, Steven Stone approached Ash. He had heard about the trainer who had triggered Mega Evolution without a keystone or a key ring. He asked directly if that was him. Ash admitted he didn't even know what those things were. He simply felt a connection with Greninja, and the transformation had happened on its own. He also told Steven about the physical toll it took on both of them. Lance joined the conversation. He explained that it was Ash's battle during the Indigo League that had first led him to discover Mega Evolution through his own bond with his Pokémon. Mega Evolution was still not public knowledge, but the energy for it ran strong in Hoenn, almost as strong as in Kalos. Steven, grateful, handed Ash a keyring. He explained that this was the key instrument for Mega Evolution, and that Ash deserved to have it. Then Lance reached into his coat and produced a strange, smooth stone. He had found it, but had no use for it himself. He told Ash that it might suit Gryvel. Ash took it carefully. After some quiet conversation, Steven and Lance went their separate ways. Sceptile and the road to the League. Ash trained Grovyle and Combusken hard. During that period, Grovyle evolved into Sceptile, not because it had to, but because it wanted to experience the next level. With the stone Lance had given him and his new keyring, Ash immediately attempted to Mega Evolve Sceptile. Nothing happened. He tried again and again. The connection was there, but something was still blocked. Against Tate and Liza, the Thunder Armor moment happened as it always did. At one's gym, the first battle was 2-on-2. Ash used Pikachu and Routes, who evolved into Kirlia during the fight, against Celio and Seaking, and won. The second battle was a 3-on-3. Love Disc hit Sceptile with Sweet Kiss, so Ash switched to Swallow, who finished it. Juan sent out Milotic, which defeated Swallow. Sceptile came back in and beat Milotic, but came out exhausted. Then, Juan revealed his true ace, Sharpedo, holding a Mega Stone. Ash hadn't expected this. In a moment of panic, he tried to Mega Evolve Sceptile. Nothing. Juan Mega Evolved Sharpedo instead, and defeated Sceptile cleanly. Ash sent out Greninja. The battle was tight, and Ash realized that his only path forward was the Battle Bond. He pushed for it. He nearly got there. Then, with Sharpedo moving in for the finish, something in Ash gave way. The bond activated. Ash Greninja emerged and defeated Sharpedo, but Greninja collapsed immediately after. Juan walked over to Ash, who could barely stay upright, and handed him the badge. Then he said something that stayed with Ash long after they left the gym. For Mega Evolution, you don't just need a stone, you need to be truly one with your Pokémon. Drake. Drake recognized Ash the moment he saw him, the child with the unusual Mega Evolution. He challenged Ash to a 2-on-2 battle, and noticed immediately that Sceptile was holding a Mega Stone. He asked Ash to Mega Evolve. Ash couldn't. They battled anyway. Salamence defeated Sceptile, and then defeated Greninja shortly after. Drake had seen enough. He brought Ash aboard his ship, and sat down with him properly. He explained the fundamentals of bonding, what it truly meant to be connected to a Pokémon at that level, and what was needed to sustain it. Under Drake's guidance, Ash and Sceptile worked toward Mega Evolution together. It came slowly, then all at once. Ash felt the same surge he'd known with Greninja, but this time it was stable, clean, and there was no toll on his body. Training and team. Ash trained hard for the Hoenn League. Kirlia evolved into Gardevoir. Combusken evolved into Blaziken. By the time the league began, Ash's team stood as Pikachu, Greninja, Sceptile, Blaziken, Gardevoir, Swallow. He swept through the early rounds without much resistance until he reached Tyson. Blaziken opened against Tyson's Donphan. Speed boost kept stacking and Donphan went down. Tyson sent Hariyama, a double knockout. Tyson sent Shiftry against Gardevoir, and after a fierce exchange, Gardevoir fell short. Swallow finished Shiftry. Tyson's Sceptile defeated Swallow, and Ash's Sceptile stepped in and took it down. Then Tyson Mega Evolved his Metagross. The crowd erupted. Ash Mega Evolved Sceptile in response. The two Mega Evolutions clashed in the middle of the arena, but Mega Metagross won. Ash sent Pikachu, who barely scraped past Metagross before being beaten badly by Meowth. Greninja finished Meowth without difficulty. Ash then went on to win the Hoenn League, his first ever league victory. The Elite Four. Against Sydney, the battle was close throughout. Ash's Mega Sceptile went up against Sydney's Mega Absol and barely pulled through. Against Phoebe, Mega Sceptile was defeated by her Mega Banette. Greninja closed it out, though not comfortably. Against Glacia, Pikachu and Speed Boost Blaziken nearly swept the entire lineup until her Mega Frostlass stopped them both. Ash brought in Mega Sceptile, and the type disadvantage made it an uphill fight that ultimately ended in defeat. Greninja came in last, activated the Battle Bond, and won. For the first time, Ash felt no physical toll, not from the Battle Bond, not from Mega Evolution, not from using both at once. Something had finally clicked. Drake, the final battle. Drake opened with Altaria. Ash countered with Gardevoir, and the type advantage did its work. Gardevoir won. Drake sent Flygon, which defeated Gardevoir. Swallow came in and was taken down as well. Blaziken entered and with its mounting speed dismantled Flygon completely. Then came Kingdra. Its ability, Sniper, allowed it to land precise, punishing hits on Blaziken regardless of speed. Blaziken fell. Pikachu stepped in and knocked out Kingdra. Drake then revealed Garchomp. Caught in Sinnoh, he said. Its ground typing shut Pikachu down. Sceptile defeated Garchomp. Drake smiled. All right, now I go all out. Salamence. Both Drake and Ash mega evolved simultaneously. The crowd went silent, then roared. Mega Salamence won. Ash sent Greninja and activated the battle bond. Ash Greninja was stronger than ever before, more potent, more controlled. But even at full power, it wasn't enough to overcome Mega Salamence. Ash fell just short of the champion title. Back in Kanto, Ash's reputation had grown significantly. Scott approached him directly and recommended the Battle Frontier. With his Hoenn experience behind him, he cleared it with far greater ease than anyone expected. When Scott offered him a position as a Frontier Brain, he turned it down. He had somewhere else to be. Gary found him shortly after, showing off his new Electivire, a Pokémon from Sinnoh, he explained. Ash's ears perked up. Drake had mentioned Sinnoh during their time together, telling Ash that the region held a unique cosmic energy, something that might hold the answers to the battle bond of his Greninja. The road to Sinnoh. Like always, Ash said goodbye to his Pokémon before leaving. And like always, Pikachu and Greninja refused to be left behind. Brock joined him as well. The timing, however, wasn't on their side. Because of everything that had happened in Hoenn and the Battle Frontier, they were running late and the ferry had already gone. Professor Oak stepped in and arranged flight tickets to Lilypad Town, also asking them to deliver a package to Professor Rowan along the way. From Lilypad Town, they would catch a blimp to Twin Leaf Town. Ash and Brock thanked him and headed to the airport. They landed in Lilypad Town to find the blimp delayed until the following 3 days. A Pokémon contest was being held in town and the schedule had shifted around it. They checked into the Pokémon Center for the night. The next morning, Brock headed out to watch the contest. Ash had no interest in that and went toward the jungle to get some training in. He let Greninja and Pikachu out, and the three of them started working through drills, until a huge boulder came flying at them out of nowhere. Ash spun around. Looking very pleased with itself was a small shark-like Pokémon. Ash pulled out his Pokédex. Gibble. He grinned. Gibble had zero interest in being caught and fled immediately. Greninja's speed stopped it in its tracks, and with nowhere left to run, Ash threw the Pokéball. It clicked shut. Back in town, Brock was watching the contest, and beside him sat a girl with a Piplup next to her. Her eyes carried the quiet, tired look of someone who had already made a difficult decision. Brock and Dawn officially introduced to one another. Dawn had come to Lilypad Town for one last look at a contest before officially calling it quits as a coordinator. Too many losses had worn her down, and she had decided she was done. When Ash returned, Brock introduced them. Ash heard her story and told her a bit about himself, the journey, the setbacks, the battles he had lost before he won any. Something in what he said landed differently than all the encouragement she had probably already heard. Dawn made her decision. She would travel with them. The following morning, the three of them boarded the blimp to Twin Leaf Town. They had barely settled in when a stranger approached Ash from across the aisle. "Aren't you the Hoenn League winner?" Ash said yes and introduced himself. The stranger nodded and introduced himself as Paul, runner-up of the Kalos League. Then he challenged Ash to a 3-on-3 battle once the flight landed. Ash was ready to say yes on the spot, but Brock cut in and reminded him about the errand Professor Oak had asked him to run at Professor Rowan's lab. Ash reluctantly postponed. Paul agreed and went back to his seat. Professor Rowan's lab. After landing, Ash and the gang made their way to Professor Rowan's lab. Dawn already knew Rowan and greeted him comfortably while Ash and Brock introduced themselves and handed over the package Oak had sent them. Rowan received it and exchanged a few words with them before they headed out. They didn't get far before they ran into Paul again. He was out on the road catching some starlies. After assessing each one, he released the ones he deemed too weak and moved on. Ash's jaw tightened watching it. He said something. Paul responded. The tension between them built quickly, and both of them decided to settle with a battle right there. Ash versus Paul. First battle. Ash opened with Pikachu. Paul sent out Torterra. The type advantage was obvious, and Paul used it without hesitation. Pikachu went down. Ash reached for his next Pokeball and released Gibble, freshly caught, barely trained, and full of energy. Paul noticed immediately, and to keep things fair, sent out Chimchar in response. The two Pokemon went at each other evenly for a while, until Gibble won. Paul looked down at Chimchar with barely concealed irritation, said something abusive, and recalled it. Then he sent out Electivire. Ash sent out Greninja. Paul studied Greninja for a moment before speaking. He said he had gone to Kalos specifically to get one. He had caught several, trained them hard, but none of them had the raw strength Ash's Greninja carried, and none of them had shown anything close to the transformation he saw in Johto. So he had released them all. Ash's expression changed. He didn't say much, but the frustration showed. The battle that followed was the most intense either of them had fought in a long time. Greninja's speed against Electivire's durability and type advantage, neither side giving an inch. Then Paul told Ash to stop holding back and use the transformation. Ash said no. It wouldn't be a fair fight if Paul didn't have something to match it. Paul looked at him evenly. "Who says I don't?" he asked. He raised his keyring. Electivire's mega evolution erupted across the field. Ash exhaled. "All right then, our turn." The bond activated. Ash Greninja stood across from Mega Electivire, and the two of them went at each other with everything they had. The final exchange came down to a single moment. A massive shuriken from Greninja and at the same time a massive purple thunderbolt from Electivire. The two attacks met in the middle and tore the ground apart. When the dust settled, both Pokémon were down. A draw. Paul recalled Electivire and walked over. He looked at Ash for a moment and then said that Ash was too soft, but that he had gotten lucky to have a Greninja that strong. Then he turned and left. Ash stood there quietly after he walked away. The words sat uncomfortably because Gary had once said something almost exactly the same to him. On the way to Orberg City, Dawn entered a contest, but the weight of her previous losses was still sitting heavy on her, and her confidence wasn't there. She lost again. Ash tried to encourage her, but Paul's words from earlier were still rattling around in his own head, and he couldn't quite find the right things to say. It didn't land the way he wanted it to. Not long after, a plate-shaped Pokémon started following the group. Ash got a strange sense of déjà vu. It reminded him of how Ralt had quietly trailed him back in Hoenn. He turned around and asked a Pokémon if it wanted to come along. It did. Ash caught Bronzor without a battle. Orberg Gym. The group arrived in Orberg City to find the gym leader wasn't there. Together with Paul, they tracked him down in the mines and brought him back. Paul challenged him first and won without much trouble. The next day, it was Ash's turn. He chose Bronzor, Pikachu, and Gibble. The battle started, but Ash wasn't himself. He kept zoning out, lost in his own thoughts, until Brock snapped him back to reality mid-battle. Rampardos, who had just evolved from Cranidos during the fight with Bronzor, was charging straight at them. Ash reacted on instinct and called Gyro Ball, which sent Rampardos flying back. But both Pokémon went down together. Ash followed up with Cheeble against Rourke's Onix and won the gym battle. He didn't look happy about it though. Hunter J. On the road, the group ran into Hunter J, who set her sights on Pikachu. Greninja stepped out immediately. Hunter J took one look at Greninja and Mega evolved her Salamence. She wasn't taking any chances. Ash responded with the Battle Bond. Ash Greninja defeated Mega Salamence, and with no escape route left, Hunter J was captured. Dawn's comeback. In the next town, Ash and Brock pushed Dawn to answer another contest. This time, she won. Seeing her happiness brought some life back into Ash as well. A small piece of his confidence quietly returned. Against Gardenia, the battle was tough, but Ash pulled through. Reuniting with Gary. Ash ran into Gary not long after. The two of them decided to have a casual one-on-one battle. Gary Mega evolved his Blastoise. Ash sent out Greninja and tried to activate the Battle Bond, and nothing happened. The connection just wouldn't come. Gary called the battle off for now and suggested they fight another time. Then Ash asked Gary something that had been sitting on his mind. Was he just a lucky trainer who happened to have a stronger ninja? Gary paused. He admitted that he used to think exactly that, but not anymore. He told Ash that even though Greninja was powerful, it was Ash who had built that strength. Through training, through the bond between them, it wasn't luck. That answer lifted something off Ash's shoulders. The group crossed paths with Cynthia, and Paul immediately challenged her to a 3-on-3. Cynthia's Garchomp defeated Paul's Torterra, then Mega Electivire, and then his Ursaring, which ended quickly. Cynthia acknowledged Paul's strength before leaving, but it was clear that she was on a completely different level. Before she left, she shared the legend of Dialga and Palkia with the group. After Cynthia walked away, Paul turned to Chimchar. He had used it in a battle against another trainer just before meeting Cynthia, and its performance had disappointed him. Without hesitation, Paul released it. Ash stepped forward and took Chimchar in. He trained Chimchar patiently, just like in canon. With Greninja around as a guiding presence, the whole team grew sharper and more disciplined. Veilstone City. In Veilstone City, the group met Reggie, Paul's older brother. He had a wall full of gym badges, but was missing one frontier symbol, the one that belonged to Brandon. Reggie also told them something important about Chimchar. Its potential was extraordinary, almost on par with Greninja, which is exactly why Paul had caught it in the first place. Now it was Ash's responsibility to bring that out. In the gym battle, Bronzor swept through Metatite and Machoke before falling to Lucario. Gible stepped up against Lucario's Megaform and pushed itself so hard mid-battle that it evolved into Gabite, almost winning before Pikachu had to step in and finish the job. The Wallace Cup. Don entered the Wallace Cup and won, defeating May from Hoenn, a more experienced coordinator. The victory meant a lot. Don was back to her old self, confident and motivated. That night at Lake Valor, Ash encountered something invisible in the water. It felt strangely familiar. When he told the group about it the next morning, Don mentioned she had experienced something similar at Lake Verity. May, who had joined their conversation, added that there was a third lake near Snow Point City with a similar mysterious presence. Ash versus Paul, second battle. Ash and Paul ran into each other again. Words were exchanged and both of them agreed to a one-on-one. Paul looked over Ash's team and laughed. A whole new roster. He told Ash he was wasting his time. Trainers at their level should be sticking with their strongest, most proven Pokémon. Ash sent out Chimchar. Paul sent out an Ursaluna, one he had evolved using a peat block, though not in the usual way. This one was something different, a Blood Moon Ursaluna. Paul made short work of Chimchar, pushing it into a corner until its Blaze ability activated. That was exactly what Paul had been looking for when he first caught it. Chimchar fought back hard, evolved into Monferno mid-battle, and spiraled out of control. Ash rushed toward it to calm it down. Monferno, coming back to its senses, looked ashamed of itself. Paul simply said the Pokémon still couldn't be controlled and was useless. Then he walked away. Crasher Wake. Against Crasher Wake, Pikachu made quick work of Floatzel. Then Wake sent out Quagsire, which ended in a double knockout with Bronzor. Wake's final Pokémon was Gyarados, and it Mega evolved. Gabite stepped in, and the two had a fierce back and forth until Mega Gyarados won. Pikachu came in last and barely managed to take it down. Team Galactic. The group met up with Cynthia again, along with a businessman named Cyrus, who recognized Ash immediately as the Hoenn League winner. They went inside together, unaware that Team Galactic had already been watching them. The full picture slowly came into view. Team Galactic's plan was to capture the Lake Three and use them to lure Dialga and Palkia, with the goal of unmaking the current world and replacing it with something new. Cyrus was revealed as their leader. Ash versus Paul, third battle. Ash ran into Paul again after Paul had won the Relic Badge. They were about to battle when Brock stepped between them and asked Paul about Reggie and why he had never won that final frontier symbol from Brandon. Paul's answer was cold and simple. Reggie was too soft. He wasn't strong enough to beat Brandon. That's why he chose only the most powerful Pokémon. They battled anyway. Paul sent out Honchkrow. Ash responded with Bronzor. Paul laughed at the type disadvantage and went on the attack. Bronzor took the hits and evolved into Bronzong, but the level gap and type advantage were too much. Paul won. Fantina's Gym. Ash used Bronzor against Fantina's Driftblim. He combined Gyro Ball with a counter shield, a technique he had picked up from watching Dawn, and knocked Driftblim out cleanly. Monferno came out next and swept Miss Magius using the same approach. Then Fantina sent out Gengar and Mega evolved it. Mega Gengar tore through Gabite and Bronzor, taking heavy hits along the way. Monferno came back in and got beaten badly until Blaze kicked in and it took Mega Gengar down. The out-of-control Monferno forced Ash to send out Greninja to stop it. Fantina handed Ash the badge and quietly advised him to get Monferno under control. Byron's Gym. Gabite defeated both Bronzor and Bastiodon. Byron sent out Steelix and Mega evolved it, and Ash brought in Monferno, which had too much speed for it to handle.
On the road to Snow Point, a mischievous Snorunt kept ambushing the group on the mountain path, similar to how Gibble had first appeared. Ash used Monferno to battle and catch it. Against Candace, Bronzong defeated Sneasel. When Medicham came out, Ash swapped in Gibite and took it down along with Snover. Candace revealed her last Pokémon, Abomasnow, and Mega evolved it. Mega Abomasnow defeated Gibite. Bronzong put up a solid fight but lost too. Monferno came in last and won, holding back its Blaze ability, keeping it under control this time. Draco Meteor. Further down the road, Ash encountered another Gibble being trained by an elderly woman named Wilma to learn Draco Meteor. Ash sent out his own Gibite. The two Pokémon trained alongside each other under Wilma's guidance, pushing each other hard, and in a moment that surprised even Wilma, both of them learned Draco Meteor at the same time. Brandon and the Lake. Brandon showed up, and Paul, having heard that Ash defeated him, immediately challenged Brandon himself. It was a tough battle, and Paul lost. He then challenged Ash to a battle using his old team. Ash turned it down. He would bring back his older Pokémon for the league only. Paul agreed. At Lake Acuity, Brock encountered Uxie in the same quiet, mysterious way Ash and Dawn had each found their own Lake Guardian. Team Galactic's Endgame. Cynthia and Looker found the group while they were already chasing Team Galactic. With the Lake Trio's help, our group was teleported inside the Galactic base. Ash and the group fought through the grunts and admins, but Cyrus slipped away and made it to the Spear Pillar with his top admins. Ash's reputation, Hoenn League winner, the trainer who disbanded Team Rocket, had spread even into the criminal world, and Cyrus knew exactly who he was dealing with. At the top, Cyrus summoned Dialga and Palkia and bound them with the red chain. The group freed the Lake Trio, which weakened the chain's hold, but Cyrus poured more power into it and captured both legendaries again. Through telepathy, the Lake Trio reached out to Ash and his friends and asked them to help set Dialga and Palkia free. That was when Azelf turned its attention to Ash. It sensed something deep inside him, a strange aura, locked away, that had been waiting for a long time. Azelf spoke to Ash through telepathy. You inspire courage where fear should prevail. Visions flooded Ash's mind. Every battle he had lost, every mistake he had made, every moment he had doubted himself. And then the other side of it, every Pokémon he had believed in, every bond he had built, every impossible moment where something had come through anyway. A wave of energy rose up from somewhere deep inside him. This power, Ash said, it was always yours. Will. Ash hesitated. Even when I doubt myself? Especially then. The strongest will is not the one that never questions itself. It is the one that keeps moving despite those questions. What makes you special is not Greninja. It is you and the bond you share. A bond that defies the laws of mega evolution. A bond no one else has ever had. So believe in yourself, Ash. The secret of your mega evolution has always been will, courage, and that bond. Greninja burst out of its Pokeball on its own. Through Ash's aura, it connected deeply, and Ash Greninja appeared, stronger and clearer than ever before. The group stepped through the portal Cyrus had opened into the distortion world. Inside, there was no time, no space, just chaos. Dialga and Palkia were locked in battle, and a third presence had joined them, Giratina. The Lake Trio warned through telepathy that if Giratina crossed into the real world, it would be over. Dialga and Palkia needed to be calmed and return to their own world. Everyone released their Pokémon and the battle erupted. Ash Greninja dealt the most damage, but the legendaries were on another level. In the chaos, Gabai evolved into Garchomp and launched Draco Meteor at Giratina. When Giratina turned on Garchomp, Greninja and Azelf combined their power to stun it, and in that time, the Lake Trio worked together to calm Dialga and Palkia. Both legendaries opened the portal and everyone came through. Everyone, except Cyrus. He stood frozen in the distortion world, unable to move. The portal closed. Team Galactic was arrested. The Lake Trio returned to their lakes. Training and growth. Ash trained hard after everything had settled. Monferno received special sessions from Greninja, who worked patiently with it, helping it push further than it had ever had, while also teaching it to control the Blaze ability rather than be consumed by it. Monferno evolved into Infernape. Snorunt evolved into Frostlass. During this period, Lorelei met with Ash. She had wanted a rematch with Greninja since their last encounter, and Ash agreed. She sent out Slowbro and Mega evolved it. Ash tried the Battle Bond, and this time it came easily. The battle between Ash Greninja and Mega Slowbro was intense, but Greninja's Dark typing and Ash's Counter Shield made the difference. After the battle, Lorelei handed Ash a stone and told him it was for his Frostlass. Volkner's Gym. Like in canon, Volkner had lost his motivation. Ash challenged Flint first to help bring it back. Ash's Infernape went up against Flint's Infernape, and despite the control Greninja's training had given it over the Blaze ability, Ash's Infernape still lost. There was still more to do. The result did what it was supposed to, though. It reignited Volkner. Against Volkner, Garchomp defeated Jolteon and Luxray. When Volkner sent out Electivire and Mega evolved it, Ash responded by sending out Frostlass and Mega evolving it. The two Mega evolutions clashed until Mega Electivire won. Ash then sent in Infernape, which barely scraped through on the strength of its Blaze ability. The Lily of the Valley Conference. Ash swept through the early rounds without much trouble, until he reached Paul. Paul opened with Drapion. Ash sent out Bronzong. Paul immediately set up toxic spikes across the field, poisoning the ground. Ash tried Garrow Ball, but it wasn't enough to knock out Drapion, so he switched to Garchomp, which flew above the ground and avoided the spikes entirely. Paul swapped to Honchkrow to take the battle to the sky. The two clashed high above the arena until Garchomp landed a Draco Meteor and won. Paul brought out Torterra. Ash responded with Bronzong, immune to toxic spikes, which also used Rapid Spin to clear all the traps from the field. Bronzong used Garrow Ball repeatedly, but Torterra's defensive moves and battle strategy held firm, and it eventually took down Bronzong. Garchomp came in and finished Torterra off. Paul sent out Weavile. Ash countered with Infernape, which knocked it out quickly. Then came Drapion again. Infernape and Drapion had a fierce exchange until Ash switched to Pikachu. Drapion set up toxic spikes again, and surprisingly defeated Pikachu. Garchomp came back in and knocked out Drapion. Paul sent out Blood Moon Ursaluna. It knocked out Garchomp. Ash sent out Frostlass and Mega evolved it, floating above the ground, untouched by the poison. Blood Moon Ursaluna couldn't get a clean hit as Frostlass hid within the snow created by Snow Warning. When Frostlass went for the finishing blow, Paul made an incredible read, dodged it completely, and hit back hard enough to knock Frostlass out. Infernape came in, immediately poisoned by the spikes. Infernape and Blood Moon Ursaluna traded massive hits until Infernape activated Blaze, dug deep, and won, the intense heat melting all the toxic spikes off the field in the process. Paul sent out Mega Electivire. It played defensively, using Protect and setting up electric terrain to boost its attacks. Infernape battled through the damage and landed a critical hit on Mega Electivire, then immediately collapsed from the accumulated poison. Ash sent out Greninja, who activated the Battle Bond the moment it appeared on the field. It was Greninja's hardest battle. The type advantage was brutal, and Paul pushed it to the absolute limit. When Mega Electivire wound up for a Thunder Punch that looked like it would end everything, Ash called it at the last second. Counter Shield.
Greninja spun, wrapped the shuriken in the reflected energy, and landed the final blow. Ash won. Paul stood quietly for a moment. Then he walked over and said goodbye, properly this time, without any edge in his voice. He had seen something in the battle that made him look at things differently. He left on good terms. Tobias. Ash's team had taken a beating against Paul, so he brought back some familiar faces for this one. Tobias opened with Darkrai, the same Pokémon he had used to sweep the entire tournament. Ash sent out Charizard. Darkrai put Charizard to sleep, but something shifted in the air. Ash's aura flared around him and Charizard opened its eyes, shook off the sleep, and defeated Darkrai. Tobias, visibly thrown off, sent out Latios, which defeated Charizard. Pikachu came in next, still feeling the frustration of its earlier loss to Drapion, and fought harder than it had all tournament. It ended in a double knockout with Latios. Tobias sent out Heatran. Ash brought in Blaziken, whose speed boost let it stay one step ahead the whole time. One Swords Dance and a high jump kick later, Heatran was down. Tobias sent out Landorus, which dodged the follow-up high jump kick and let the recoil damage Blaziken itself, then finished it off with Earthquake. Garchomp stepped up and the two of them had an intense battle across both the sky and the ground, ending in another double knockout. Ash sent out Sceptile. Tobias sent out Tyranitar. Both trainers Mega evolved. After a long back-and-forth exchange, Mega Sceptile won. Tobias laughed, reached for his final Pokeball, and sent out Rayquaza. It defeated Sceptile. Ash looked down at his last Pokeball. Greninja was already trying to come out. Ash Greninja appeared on the field. Rayquaza used Dragon Ascent and Mega evolved as well. The odds were not in Ash's favor, and everyone in the stadium knew it. Greninja fought with everything it had, and it was the best performance either of them had ever put together. But Mega Rayquaza was on another level, and in the end, Greninja went down. Tobias won the tournament. Saying goodbye. Ash and Dawn parted ways. Brock headed home. His dream of becoming a Pokémon doctor had quietly taken shape over the course of the Sinnoh journey, and it was time to pursue it properly. Back in Kanto, a message was waiting. From Professor Oak, the travel restrictions on Kalos had finally been lifted. Ash packed his bag. He had been trying to get to Kalos since before Hoenn. Kalos was next.
Welcome to Kalos. Ash arrived in Kalos, and the Lumio City Gym was right there, and he walked straight toward it. The machine at the entrance scanned him, checked his badge count, and kicked him out before he even got through the door. He moved on. Professor Oak had told him to visit Professor Sycamore before anything else. Sycamore had been Greninja's first caretaker before it ended up in Pallet Town, so Ash headed to the lab. The two of them introduced themselves and got along easily. When Ash let Greninja out, it immediately brightened up at the sight of its old caretaker. Sycamore greeted it warmly. Then the lab door swung open. A girl walked in, spotted Ash, and stopped dead in her tracks. Her face went red almost immediately. She asked quietly if he was Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town. Ash said yes. She collected herself and introduced herself as Serena. She told him they had actually met before, at one of Professor Oak's summer camps when they were young. She had even given him her handkerchief once. Ash blinked. Then the memory came back to him. Serena told him he was well known in Kalos. Ash's Greninja had made headlines, and his run in Hoenn and Sinnoh League had spread further than he realized. She admitted that watching him had been what pushed her to finally pick up a starter and begin her own journey. She had come to Professor Sycamore's lab for exactly that reason. Sycamore smiled and asked her which starter she had in mind. He mentioned that ever since Ash's Greninja had become so widely talked about, Froakie had become the most popular choice among young trainers in the region. He assumed she would want one too. Serena shook her head. She wanted Fennekin. Sycamore looked surprised. Serena explained that even though Ash was her inspiration, her path was different from his. She was going to be a Pokémon coordinator, not a league challenger. Fennekin suited her better. Sycamore nodded and handed her the Pokeball. Ash and Greninja then visited the Froakie Sanctuary nearby, the place where Greninja had been born and raised.
Greninja wandered through it quietly, taking everything in. The nostalgia was obvious, but the welcome was cold. The other Froakie kept their distance. Greninja had always been different, and some things hadn't changed. Ash watched it from a few steps back and didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Before they left, Sycamore stopped Ash at the door. There was an egg in the lab that had refused to hatch for a long time, but the moment Ash walked in, it had started moving. Sycamore had spoken to Professor Oak about it, and Oak had suggested giving it to Ash. Something about Ash had a way of connecting with Pokémon that nobody could quite explain. Ash took the egg carefully. He tucked it safely and headed out with Serena. First catch and first gym. The two of them hadn't been walking long before their break was interrupted. A bird Pokémon swooped in, snatched their berries clean off the cloth. Ash pulled out his Pokédex. Fletchling. He grinned, battled it, and caught it. Shortly after, they ran into a woman on the road who recognized Ash immediately and raised her camera before he could say a word. She introduced herself as Viola, and then mentioned she was also a gym leader. Ash said he was in Kalos for the league, and she challenged him on the spot. Viola was expecting a tough battle. However, she relaxed a little when Ash told her he was planning to use his newer Pokémon for the Kalos League rather than his Sinnoh team. The battle played out similarly against Viola until Pikachu got involved. Still stinging from its losses in Sinnoh, Pikachu swept through the gym out of sheer frustration. Ash stood there afterwards and thought about it for a moment. Then he turned down the badge. Using Pikachu and Greninja felt like cheating at this point. He wanted to build something new. He headed into Santaloon Forest to find new teammates. A little deeper in, he came across a lake and decided to cool off. Just before jumping in, he noticed a rock floating in a slightly strange way. He threw a pebble at it. The rock moved. He pulled out his Pokédex. Skrelp. It turned towards him and charged immediately. Pikachu stepped in with a thunderbolt, and Ash caught it. Training and the rematch. Ash trains Fletchling and Skrelp with Greninja watching over the sessions. Skrelp was completely in awe of Greninja and threw itself into every drill harder because of it. The progress was quick. The rematch with Viola came around, and this time Ash's new team handled it. Fletchling went up against Vivian and pushed itself so hard mid-battle that it evolved into Fletchinder and finished the fight. Then came Surskit, who tried to use the ice field to control the pace. Skrelp wasn't bothered by it and worked through the accuracy issues to take Surskit down. Ash took the badge this time. Ash and Serena passed through Lumio City again and almost immediately ran into two new faces. A boy with thick glasses and a small girl came over to them, Clement and Bonnie. Clement recognized Ash due to his popularity and mentioned that he was actually the Lumio City gym leader. Then Clement explained the problem. He'd built a robot to run the gym while he was away, but things had gone sideways and now even he couldn't get back inside. Ash rolled up his sleeves and helped him figure it out. Then they got the bot sorted and the gym doors opened again. Clement suggested Ash collect 4 badges before they had their gym battle. It would make for a better fight. Ash agreed. Clement and Bonnie asked their father Meyer for permission and then joined the group. The next gym was Grant's. Ash sent out Skrelp first, who handled Onyx without much trouble. Then Fletchinder went up against Tyrant and gave it a serious beating, until the type weakness caught up and Fletchinder went down. Skrelp came back in and finished the job. The egg hatches. On the road between towns, something stirred inside the egg Ash had been carrying since Professor Sycamore's lab. It cracked open and out came a red sword-shaped Pokémon. Clement immediately checked his Pokédex, Honage. Then he looked closer and his jaw dropped slightly. It was shiny. Honage floated toward Ash carefully, clearly aware that its blade could hurt him. It pressed itself gently against him anyway, showing affection in the most cautious way it could manage. It knew who its trainer was from the moment it hatched. During training sessions not long after, Ash noticed something. Honage was picking things up at a remarkable pace, sharp, instinctive, almost like a natural. The bond between it and Ash felt familiar in a way that reminded him of Greninja. Meeting Corina. The group ran into Korrina, who challenged Ash almost before introductions were finished. Ash sent out Honedge. Korrina sent out Lucario. It was a genuinely intense battle. Honedge's speed and dodging ability were impressive, but Lucario's experience was too much in the end, and Honedge lost. Ash noticed the key ring on Korrina's wrist and asked if she could Mega Evolve her Lucario. She told him she didn't have a Mega Stone yet. The group went together into a nearby cave to look for one. Inside, they were attacked by a wild Blaziken. Lucario stepped up and defeated it, and shortly after, Korrina's grandfather appeared. He congratulated her. She had passed the trial without even realizing it, and the Mega Stone for Lucario was hers. Then Skrelp shot out of its Pokeball on its own and dove straight into the cave lake before anyone could react. Ash tried to call it back, but it had already gone too deep. He stood at the edge of the water, worried it had run off. Korrina's grandfather told him to wait. A few moments later, Skrelp surfaced, carrying a stone in its mouth that looked remarkably similar to a Mega Stone. The grandfather examined it and confirmed. It was the Mega Stone for Skrelp's evolution. Ash took it carefully and looked down at Skrelp with a new kind of appreciation. Korrina Mega Evolved Lucario straight away, buzzing with excitement. Ash agreed to a quick spar and sent out Skrelp. Mid-battle, Mega Lucario began losing control of itself. Ash immediately switched to Greninja, who shut it down quickly and cleanly. Korrina's grandfather told her she wasn't ready yet and sent her off for more training. On the road, Ash quietly walked alongside her and helped fill in what was missing, the things he had learned about the bond between trainer and Pokémon and what Mega Evolution actually required. Eventually, they reached her gym, and by then, Korrina was a different trainer. Korrina's gym. Ash sent out Honedge. It swept through Mienfoo and Machoke without much resistance. Then Korrina sent out Lucario and Mega Evolved it, this time with far more control and focus than before. Honedge and Mega Lucario had a fierce battle that pushed Honedge hard enough to evolve into Doublade. Even so, Mega Lucario won. Ash sent in Fletchinder, who was fresh and took advantage of the damage Lucario had already taken from the Doublade battle. Fletchinder won, and Ash took the badge. Sanpei. Not long after, the group met Sanpei, a ninja trainer traveling with a Frogadier. Sanpei knew exactly who Ash was and was barely hiding how starstruck he was. When Ash let Greninja out, Frogadier immediately gravitated toward it. The two of them just clicked. Ash watched Greninja's expression soften in a way he didn't see very often. Greninja had always been treated as an outsider by its own kind. Having a Frogadier genuinely look up to it meant something. Ramos's gym. Fletchinder swept through Jumpluff and Go-Go without breaking a sweat. Then Ramos sent out Victreebel and Mega Evolved it. Mega Victreebel knocked Fletchinder out. Skrelp came in next and had a tough back and forth with it before going down. Then Ash sent out Doublade, whose poison immunity took away Victreebel's biggest advantage and turned the tide completely. Doublade won. Clement's gym. The gym battle finally arrived. Doublade swept through Heliolisk and Luxray cleanly. Then Clement revealed his ace, a Raichu that Mega Evolved into Mega Raichu. The whole tone of the battle shifted. Clement looked across the field and asked Ash to send out Pikachu. Pikachu had been carrying the weight of its Sinnoh performances quietly this whole time. It stepped onto the field with something to prove. The battle was tight and nerve-wracking, and there were moments where it looked like Pikachu might not get there, but it scraped through and won. Afterward, Pikachu stood on the field looking at its own paws. The win felt different. Something inside it was pushing for more, wanting to reach a level it hadn't found yet. Pancham. During one of Serena's performances, her Pancham kept getting distracted. It wasn't disinterested, it was just clearly more drawn to battling than performing. Serena watched it for a while and made her decision quietly. She walked over to Ash and handed him Pancham's Pokeball without making a big deal about it. Ash took it and looked down at the ball. Another one for the team. Valerie's gym. Ash opened with Doublade, which knocked out Sylveon cleanly. Pancham came in next and went up against Aromatisse but couldn't get the job done and lost. Fletchinder stepped in and took Aromatisse down with it in a double knockout. Both trainers were down to their last Pokémon. Ash sent out Doublade again. Valerie sent out Gardevoir and Mega Evolved it. Ash looked at Mega Gardevoir and for a moment thought about his own Gardevoir back in Hone. He wondered what it would have looked like with a Mega Stone. He pushed the thought aside and focused. The battle that followed was the hardest Double Eight had faced. Mega Evolution brought a completely different level of power, and Double Eight had to dig deep into everything it had learned. But its prodigious instincts carried it through, and it came out on top, barely. Sawyer. Ash found Sawyer on the road, and the two of them had a battle, and during the fight, Sawyer's Trico pushed itself hard enough to evolve into Grovyle. On Ash's side, Skrelp finally evolved into Dragolge. Ash won the battle, and afterwards took some time to give Sawyer proper guidance, pointing him in the right direction the same way others had done for him. Olympia's gym and her prediction. When the group reached Olympia, she did something unexpected before the battle even started. She shared a vision she had seen, a dark power threatening Kalos. She told Ash that he had the ability to stop it. But then her expression changed, and she admitted that what she had seen went beyond even that. Something far darker was coming, something that wouldn't just threaten Kalos, but the entire world. The question was whether Ash could stop it too. Greninja was at the center of everything she had seen. It had a key role in what was coming, but before it could fulfill that role, it needed to find peace within itself. It needed to stop feeling like an outcast, stop doubting its own worth, let go of the guilt it had carried since being treated differently by its own kind, and fully believe in both itself and its bond with Ash. Ash didn't say much after that. He just looked at Greninja quietly. The gym battle that followed was genuinely difficult. Olympia's future sight kept catching Ash off guard, no matter how he tried to work around it. Then, Talonflame evolved mid-battle, and the pace it brought to the fight changed everything. Alongside Double Eight, the pace became too much for Olympia to predict around. For the final Pokémon, Olympia sent out Alakazam, and Mega evolved it. Ash sent out Pancham for the type advantage, but Mega Alakazam was too powerful, and Pancham went down. Ash then sent out Dragolge, and Mega evolved it. Mega Dragolge and Mega Alakazam had an intense clash, and Mega Dragolge came out on top. Olympia handed Ash's badge. Then she reached into her pocket and gave him something else, a Dusk Stone. She said she had seen that the trainer standing in front of her would need one. Ash looked at it for a moment, then looked at Double Eight. He used it right there. Double Eight evolved into Aegislash. Zygarde and Team Flare. The group encountered a Zygarde cell, the small green creature Bonnie had taken to calling Squishy. Team Flare had been after it, and had briefly managed to capture it. When Ash showed up, Team Flare took one look at him and retreated immediately. His reputation clearly preceded him. Squishy stayed with Bonnie. Team Flare came back later in larger numbers, this time deliberately targeting the group's weaker members to split them up. When the others were put in danger, Squishy acted on its own, shifting into its 10% form and helping Ash fight off the Team Flare grunts surrounding him. Sanpei's return. Ash crossed paths with Sanpei again. His Frogadier had evolved, and the first thing it did was find Ash's Greninja and pick up right where they had left off. Sanpei told Ash about a conflict involving his ninja village, and Ash didn't hesitate. He went with him. After everything was resolved and the village was safe, the people there treated Ash and Greninja like heroes. Greninja stood in the middle of it all, and something in its expression was different. The wounds that had been sitting quietly since its days as an outcast Froakie were beginning to heal. It was being celebrated by people who understood what it was, and that meant more than anyone around it fully realized. Elaine. Ash and Sawyer were in the middle of a spar, Mega Sceptile against Mega Dragolge, when someone stopped to watch from the side of the road. He had been observing for a while before he approached. His name was Elaine. He knew exactly who Ash was, the trainer who could Mega Evolve without a stone. He asked for a battle against Greninja. Ash hesitated, but agreed. Elaine sent out Charizard and Mega Evolved it into Mega Charizard X. Ash battled without using the battle bond at first. Elaine pushed them to use a transformation. Ash reluctantly activated it. Ash Greninja dismantled Mega Charizard X without much difficulty. Elaine accepted the loss without complaint. Ash could see straight away that this was a trainer operating at a very high level. The two of them parted on good terms. Later, away from the group, Elaine was on a different mission entirely. He was working alongside Team Flare, personally assigned by Lysander, to help track down and capture Zygarde. He moved quietly, drawing no attention, and nobody around Ash had any idea. Wulfric's Gym. Ash sent out Aegislash, who knocked out Avalugg without much trouble. Then Wulfric sent out Weavile. Pancham stepped in and pushed itself hard enough mid-battle to evolve into Pangoro, and the newly evolved powerhouse took Weavile down as well. Wulfric brought out his ace, Abomasnow. Ash answered with Talonflame, who defeated it. The Lumiose Conference. Ash swept through the early rounds of the league without much resistance until he ran into Sawyer. Before the battle, Sawyer made a specific request. He wanted Ash to use his old Sceptile for this one. He had heard about how strong it had become and wanted to see it for himself. Ash agreed. Sawyer opened with Slaking. Ash sent out Pangoro, and the two powerhouses traded blows until it ended in a double knockout. Sawyer sent out Clawitzer. Ash responded with Talonflame, and despite the type disadvantage, Talonflame pulled through and won. Sawyer brought out his own Aegislash. Ash sent out his Aegislash in response, and it handled Sawyer's Aegislash cleanly without much resistance. Sawyer then sent out Salamence. Ash answered with Talonflame again, but this time Talonflame went down. Pikachu stepped in and defeated Salamence. Sawyer sent out Slurpuff, and Pikachu defeated that too. Finally, Sawyer sent out Sceptile. Ash responded with his own Sceptile, and both of them Mega Evolved at the same time. The battle that followed caught Ash off guard. Sawyer's Sceptile held its ground far longer than he expected, going move for move with his own. But in the end, Ash's Sceptile carried too much raw power, and Sawyer's Sceptile couldn't keep up. Ash versus Elaine. The final arrived. Ash against Elaine. Pikachu opened the battle and defeated Elaine's Tyranitar. Elaine sent out Weavile, and Ash answered with Aegislash, switching smoothly between its blade form and shield form to wear Weavile down and finish it off. Elaine sent out Bisharp, who landed a guillotine edge on Pangoro and knocked it out in one hit before Ash even saw it coming. Ash sent out Talonflame. Elaine countered with Unpheasant, and the two of them ended in a draw. Elaine brought out Metagross. Ash sent out Aegislash again, this time leaning into its attacking stance and took Metagross down. Elaine sent Bisharp back out for round 2. Aegislash handled it without much difficulty. Frustrated, Elaine reached for his strongest card, Charizard, and Mega Evolved it. Mega Charizard X defeated Aegislash. Ash sent out Drowgage, and Mega Evolved it. Drowgage gave Charizard a genuinely hard fight, slowly poisoning it throughout the exchange, but eventually went down too. He sent out Greninja and activated the Battle Bond. With the poison still working through Charizard's system and Greninja's experience carrying it through the final stretch, Ash Greninja won the battle. Ash had done it. He was the champion of the Lumiose Conference. Team Flare's attack. During the award ceremony, everything fell apart. Team Flare unleashed a corrupted Zygarde and seized control of the city. Ash and the group rushed to fight it, Squishy alongside them. In the middle of the chaos, the truth came out. Elaine had been working directly under Lysander this entire time. When Lysander revealed his true intentions, Elaine looked genuinely shaken, betrayed. He turned without hesitation and joined Ash's side. Ash and Elaine fought Lysander together while Squishy took on the other corrupted Zygarde, and in the process got corrupted itself. Steven Stone arrived and joined the fight against Team Flare. Lysander fought at a champion's level, and his Mega Gyarados hit hard, but Aegislash kept absorbing the damage, while Mega Charizard and Ash Greninja chipped away at it until it finally went down. Lysander fell from the rooftop. Afterward, Bonnie and a masked Blaziken managed to bring Squishy back to itself. Together, they convinced the other corrupted Zygarde that humanity wasn't the enemy Team Flare had made it out to be. But the danger wasn't over. The device Team Flare had activated was still counting down, aimed straight at the sundial, a weapon capable of ending the world. With help from Steven and Diantha, Ash and Elaine made their way to the core of the device and destroyed it. Then Lysander reappeared, determined to finish what he started, to destroy the world and remake it in his own image. Zygarde reached its 100% form and put an end to both the device and Lysander. Goodbye to Aegislash. When the chaos finally settled, Squishy returned one more time. It had a request. It asked if Aegislash would stay in Kalos to help heal the areas damaged by the corruption, explaining that Aegislash's bond made it perfectly suited for the task. Aegislash understood the weight of what was being asked and accepted without hesitation. But Ash and Aegislash had history that ran deep. Ash had been there since the very moment it hatched from its egg. The goodbye between them was heavy, and neither of them tried to hide it. Heading home. Because of everything that had happened in Lumio City, the Kalos League was officially cancelled. Ash wouldn't get his shot at the championship this time around. He took the news quietly and made peace with it. Before leaving, he found Elaine, now working as an assistant under Professor Sycamore. The two of them agreed there would be a proper rematch somewhere down the line. At the airport, Serena said her goodbye in the same way it always seemed to happen, and Ash said his farewells to Clement and Bonnie. Then he boarded the plane and headed back to Kanto.
Welcome to Alola. Ash arrived in Alola with his mom and Mr. Mime for a proper vacation. They also had a job to do: deliver an egg to Samson Oak, who worked at the local Pokémon school. Then, Ash's shenanigans happened as usual until a Tauros ran straight into him and knocked him over. He looked around and met with other kids, only to realize something. Nobody here knew who he was. Alola was far enough from the other regions that his reputation hadn't really reached it. For the first time in a long time, Ash was just a regular kid. He made his way to the Pokémon school, delivered the egg to Samson Oak, and was having a look around when he spotted something outside. A group of Team Skull members had surrounded a student named Kiawe, and things were getting heated. Ash stepped in without thinking twice. Kiawe told him flatly that he didn't need any help. Ash helped anyway. He sent out Pikachu, who wiped out the Team Skull members so fast that Kiawe just stood there blinking. Then Kiawe pulled off a move that stopped Ash cold, something powerful and flashy that he had never seen before. Neither of them quite understood the other. Kiawe couldn't figure out how a Pikachu could be that strong, and Ash had no idea what that move was. Neither of them noticed the mysterious Pokémon watching from a distance. When Team Skull fled, Professor Kukui appeared and cleared things up for both of them. He told Ash that what he had witnessed was a Z-move, something unique to Alola that could be unlocked by completing island trials. He also quietly told Kiawe who Ash actually was, the champion of both the Hoenn and Kalos leagues. Kiawe's expression shifted. Shortly after, Tapu Koko appeared out of nowhere and dropped a device into Ash's hands, a Z-ring, along with a special crystal. Just like that, Ash had access to Z-moves. He made a decision on the spot. He would enroll at the Pokémon school and explore Alola properly. Tapu Koko took it upon itself to teach Ash how to use the Z-move, just as it always had.
The Electrium Z got broken in the process, and Ash was told by his new friends that he would need to prove himself through trials to earn a replacement. Not long after, Ash crossed paths with a Pikipek, who swooped in and stole his food clean out of his hand. Ash tracked it back to a whole group of Pikipek, led by a Toucan. When Pikipek made it clear that it wanted to travel with Ash, Toucan looked it over and gave its approval. The timeline moved faster here. When Ash met Litten and the old Stoutland they had been living with, Stoutland wasn't as frail as it might have been. It still had some time left. Ash asked both of them to join his team. Stoutland chose to stay at the Pokémon school as it was getting on in years, but Litten decided to go with Ash straight away. Greninja took both Litten and Pikipek under its wing immediately, pushing them through tough training sessions the same way it always did with new members of the team. The first trial. For his first island trial, Ash faced Totem Gumshoes and its allies. Litten and Pikipek handled the Yungoos allies between them, and then took on Totem Gumshoes together. The totem hit hard and pushed both of them to their limit. And right at the edge of that limit, both of them evolved at the same time, Torracat and Trumbeak. Ash switched to hit and run tactics immediately. Torracat used Dig to avoid the hits from below, while Trumbeak took to the air. They kept slipping out of range, then hit back at the same moment. Totem Gumshoes went down, and Ash earned the normal Liam Z crystal. Grand Trial. Hala. Ash sent out Torracat against Hala's Crabrawler. Torracat pushed through and won. Hala then sent out Hariyama, and Ash switched to Trumbeak. The two of them were evenly matched and traded hits back and forth until Hariyama unleashed its Z move. Ash responded with Breakneck Blitz. The two attacks collided in the middle of the field, and Trumbeak barely came out on top. Hala handed over the Fight Neem Z. At that same moment, Tapu Koko let out a cry overhead, a sound that suggested it was taking a genuine interest in Ash. Rockruff had kept sneaking off to the Pokémon Fight Club nearby. It went there one night and got beaten by a Magmar. Ash trained with it and helped it get its confidence back, and in the rematch, it defeated Magmar cleanly. Then Tapu Koko came back, this time specifically looking for Pikachu. Ash used a Z move and it hit Tapu Koko hard. The Guardian Pokémon looked at Ash for a long moment before flying off, clearly impressed. Meeting Gladion. Gladion recognized Ash the moment he saw him and challenged him to a spar. He sent out his Midnight Lycanroc. Ash sent out his new Rockruff. The gap in battle experience and level was too much, and Gladion won comfortably, finishing it off with a Rock Z move. Gladion knew Ash had far stronger Pokémon in reserve and told him so. Ash just shrugged and said he wanted to do things with his new team first. He might bring out the old ones in the future. Gladion accepted that, and the two of them went their separate ways. Akala Island. The wishy-washy trial came, and Ash quickly realized his new team had no answer for it. He had no choice. He sent out Greninja and activated the Battle Bond. Ash Greninja defeated Wishy-Washy, and Ash earned the Waterium Z move, along with Lana, who had taken care of an injured Wishy-Washy earlier. Totem Lurantis trial. Ash used Torracat and Trumbeak. Trumbeak's Breakneck Blitz cleared the path, and between the two of them, they took Totem Lurantis down. Gracium Z Crystal earned. Grand Trial. Olivia. Rockruff insisted on battling for this one. Olivia ran a double battle, sending out Probopass and her own Lycanroc. Rockruff locked its eyes on Lycanroc immediately and wouldn't look away, pure hostility from the first second. Probopass trapped Ash's Pokémon with Stone Edge. Trumbeak helped them both break free. Then Olivia launched Continental Crush, and the two of them barely escaped in time. Ash countered with all-out pummeling, which knocked out Probopass. Rockruff was still fixed completely on Lycanroc, growling and barely holding itself together. Greninja came out of its Pokeball on its own and gave Rockruff one sharp look. That was enough. Rockruff steadied itself, and together with Trumbeak, it defeated Olivia's Lycanroc. Ash earned the Rockium Z. That night, Rockruff slipped away into the forest. Pikachu woke up, noticed it was gone, and immediately went to get Ash. The two of them searched through the dark and eventually pieced together what had happened. Rockruff picked a fight with Tapu Lele and lost badly. When Ash found it and tried to comfort it, it bit Ash and then ran off in shame. In the morning, Ash told Olivia and Kukui what had happened. Olivia sent out her Lycanroc. Ash sent Greninja and Trumbeak to help cover more ground. Then they all heard a distant howl, and so did Gladion's Lycanroc, who pulled Gladion in that direction. With his permission, joined the search. They found Rockruff in bad shape. Olivia's Lycanroc guided it toward Tapu Lele and asked for help. Tapu Lele remembered the fight from the previous night and was not happy about it, but healed Rockruff anyway. Then, still irritated, it attacked again. Greninja swept in and took the hit, shielding Rockruff. When Ash and the others caught up, Tapu Lele had already worn most of the Pokémon down using Draining Kiss. Ash got caught in it too. But then Tapu Lele turned its attention back to Rockruff and healed it properly with the same move. Rockruff stood up. The light around it shifted. It evolved, not into midday or midnight form, but into the rare dusk form Lycanroc. Nearby, Greninja was getting back on its feet, looking quietly embarrassed. It was the first time it had been knocked out since the battle against Mega Rayquaza in Sinnoh. Ash knelt down next to it and told it straight. No bond phenomenon, type disadvantage, facing a legendary. That wasn't a loss to be ashamed of. Greninja didn't look entirely convinced, but it appreciated it.
Field trip to Kanto. The Pokemon school organized a field trip to Kanto and all the students went together. For Ash, it was a homecoming. He linked up with Misty and Brock and showed everyone around. They ended up in Cerulean City, where things got competitive quickly. Brock's Mega Steelix took on Kiawe and won comfortably. Then came Ash versus Misty. This wasn't the Misty Ash had grown up battling. After Ash won the Wallace Cup, Misty had entered it herself and won, then trained directly under Wallace afterward. She had grown into a champion-level trainer and she wasn't hiding it. She told Ash she wanted him to use Greninja. Misty sent out Gyarados and Mega evolved it. Ash activated the battle bond. The students watched with their mouths open. Kiawe had always seen Ash as a rival and someone to measure himself against, but seeing Ash Greninja appear in front of him, a Mega Evolution without a stone or keyring, was something he hadn't prepared for himself. Nobody had. The battle was genuinely back and forth. Misty pushed Mega Gyarados hard and showed exactly why training under Wallace had mattered, including landing a Thunder Fang that paralyzed Greninja mid-battle. Even through the paralysis, Greninja kept going. Then Ash stacked the Waterium Z and launched Hydro Vortex. The sheer force of it was too much for Mega Gyarados to absorb, and it went down. Misty stood on the other side of the field looking stunned. She asked what that last move was. Ash told her it was a Z move, something from Alola. She had never seen anything like it. The group packed up and headed back to Alola. Nebby. Tapu Koko led Ash to a Pokemon he had already seen in his dreams, a small floating Pokemon that Lily had been secretly looking after. She had named it Nebby. Lusamine and her team from the Aether Foundation arrived shortly after to see it. Wicke and Faba explained the situation to the group. Ultra Beasts were Pokemon from another dimension, capable of crossing into their world through Ultra Wormholes. The Aether Foundation had been researching these wormholes and working to understand them. Nebby, they explained, was an Ultra Beast itself. When they moved to take Nebby for research, Ash stepped in and said he would look after it. Lusamine looked at him for a moment, she knew who he was, and agreed that Nebby was probably better off with him.
Lycanroc's rage flared up again, and Ash watched it carefully. It reminded him of Infernape and how long it had taken to get that under control. He made a mental note to bring Infernape in to train with Lycanroc. Then, Nebby did something unexpected. It teleported Ash and the group directly to Gladion, who was standing with a strange Pokémon none of them had recognized. Gladion didn't waste time with small talk. He told them that an Ultra Beast was the reason Lily had developed her fear of touching Pokémon. He said plainly that if Ash's Nebby turned out to be an Ultra Beast, he would take it down. He had made it his mission to deal with every Ultra Beast he came across. He also told them about his Pokémon, a creature called Type Null, which was artificially created specifically to fight Ultra Beasts. It wasn't as powerful as it once was. Ash listened to all of it, and then simply said that Nebby had a good heart and was still just a child. Something in that response softened Gladion slightly. They agreed to a spar. Gladion sent out Type Null. Ash sent out Lycanroc, and it immediately slipped into its rage state. Ash couldn't pull it back. Greninja came out on its own and knocked Lycanroc down with one clean hit, snapping it out of it. Gladion looked at Greninja and wanted to battle it immediately. Ash shook his head. Greninja was too strong for a spar. He sent out Pikachu instead. Pikachu and Type Null went back and forth in a solid, even fight until Ash pulled out Gigavolt Havoc. The Z-move finished Type Null off. Later, Faba was spotted using underhanded tactics against Gladion and taking Type Null from him. Lycanroc's training. True to his word, Ash brought Infernape in. The two of them worked with Lycanroc every day, pushing it hard, teaching it to feel the rage without being consumed by it, and find the focus underneath. It was the same process Infernape had gone through in Sinnoh, and it knew exactly what Lycanroc needed. Meanwhile, Gladion was trying to convince his mother, Lucamine, to deal with Faba personally. She brushed it off. Behind closed doors, Faba moved quickly. He grabbed Lily and brought in a Hypno to erase her memories. Nebby felt it happening. Before anyone had time to react, it teleported Ash directly to Faba just in time. Ash sent out Pikachu and shut down the Hypno before it could do anything. Gladion and Lucamine arrived moments later. Gladion released Type Null, and it evolved into Silvally right there on the spot. The moment Silvally appeared, something stirred in Lily. The memory came flooding back. Silvally had protected her from a Nihilego when she was very young. That was the root of her fear of Pokémon. Seeing Silvally again broke through all of it, and her fear disappeared. Faba slipped away in the chaos. Gladion promised to find him. Nebby is taken. During a training session with Lycanroc and Infernape, Faba made his move. He snatched Nebby while no one was looking. Ash, Gladion, Lucamine, and Lily rushed to the Aether Foundation. The Ultra Wormhole device was already running. Ash got to Nebby just in time, and the moment he reached it, Nebby evolved into Cosmo-M. Then the wormhole fully opened. Nihilego came through. It moved straight towards Lucamine and pulled her in before anyone could stop it.
Finding Lucamine. Lily and Gladion didn't wait around. They went after their mother themselves and pushed through until they reached Totem Como and defeated it together. When Ash and the rest of the group caught up with them, all 4 island guardians were already there waiting. The Tapus explained what needed to happen. Solgaleo was the key to reaching Lucamine in the Ultra Wormhole. They showed the group the origin of Solgaleo and Lunala, cosmic Pokémon just like Nebby had always been. The 4 guardians gathered around Nebby and performed a ritual together. The Ultra Wormhole opened, and Nebby evolved into Solgaleo right in front of them. The Tapus then turned to Ash and took his Z-Ring, upgrading it on the spot and adding a new Z-Crystal built specifically for Solgaleo. Ash held up the upgraded ring and channeled its power into Solgaleo, which pushed the wormhole open wide enough for all of them to go through. They jumped in. Inside the Ultra Wormhole. The wormhole was crawling with Nihilego. The group pushed through them and eventually found Lucamine, but she was already deep under Nihilego's control. She fought against it for a moment when she saw her children, but Nihilego pushed back harder and dragged her further under. When they finally reached her properly, she attacked. Her Pokémon were under the same influence she was. Ash sent out Greninja.
Lucamini unleashed her Lopunny, which Mega evolved, and with Nihilego's control amplifying everything, it hit far harder than a normal Mega evolution would. Ash activated the Battle Bond. Ash Greninja and Mega Lopunny went at each other evenly before Greninja finally pulled ahead and won. Lucamini fled again. Ash went after her, but Lily stepped in front of him and asked him to stop. She went forward alone and tried to reach her mother herself. It wasn't working. Nihilego's grip was too strong, and it kept pulling Lucamini back under every time she started to surface. Then Ash looked down at his Z-Ring. The crystal on it had Pikachu's lightning bolt symbol. He hadn't noticed that before. He raised the ring, Pikachu locked in beside him, and 10 million volt Thunderbolt came crashing down on Nihilego. The hit was massive. Nihilego let go. Lucamini came back to herself. Everyone came home. Nebby leaves. After everything settled, Nebby quietly disappeared. Ash stood there for a moment looking at the empty space where it had been. He didn't say much about it. There was still too much ahead to stop moving. Ultra Beasts. Not long after, the Aether Foundation came to Ash and the group with a job. Ultra Beasts had been appearing across Alola and causing serious trouble. They needed help capturing them and sending them back to their own worlds. The first was Buzzwole. Ash sent out Trumbeak for the type advantage, but Buzzwole was in a completely different league. It pushed Trumbeak to its absolute limit, and in doing so, triggered its evolution into Toucanan. Ash immediately called for Beak Blast, which landed clean and left Buzzwole burned. But Toucanan had to stay still to charge the move, and Buzzwole took full advantage of that, knocking it out. Ash sent in Torracat next, and with Buzzwole already weakened and burned, Torracat finished the job. Ash captured it and sent it home. Around the same time, a small Poipoil kept showing up and playing with Pikachu before vanishing again. It came back one more time and Ash caught it properly. Then, just like in canon, the group helped Celestial safely launch itself back home before it caused any more damage. Nanu's Trial. When Ash met Nanu, the island kahuna, didn't bother with any warm-up. He strapped right into a battle. Ash sent out Lycanroc. The fight got intense quickly, and Lycanroc slipped into its berserk state. But this time, instead of losing control, it pulled itself back. Infernap's training had done exactly what it was supposed to. Lycanroc channeled the rage and used it, defeating Nanu's Crocodile. Nanu sent out Sableye. Torracat stepped up and pushed itself so hard during the exchange that it evolved into Incineroar mid-battle and took Sableye down. Nanu's last Pokémon was a Alolan Persian, which Toucanan handled without too much trouble. Nanu handed over the Lycanium Z without making a big deal of it. More Ultra Beasts. Xurkitree and Blacephalon were both captured with some teamwork and sent back to their worlds. Lycanroc's new move, Splintered Storm Shards, proved particularly useful in wearing them down. Then came Stuckataka. Its defense was on another level entirely. Nothing the team tried was making a dent. Ash looked at his options and reached for Greninja's Pokeball. The Battle Bond activated. Then Ash raised his Z-Ring on top of it, and something unexpected happened. A new crystal appeared in the shape of a shuriken. He hadn't noticed that before. He pointed the ring at Ash Greninja and released the move. The shuriken that formed was enormous, deep purple with what looked like fire burning along its edges. When it connected with Stuckataka, the impact was immediate and total. Stuckataka dropped on the spot. Everyone stood in silence for a moment. Ash lowered his arm and looked at the ring. Whatever that move was, it had come from somewhere deep in the bond between him and Greninja, deeper than anything they had reached before. Stuckataka was captured and sent home. When the group encountered Lunala, everything went wrong fast. Necrozma appeared out of nowhere and absorbed Lunala, transforming into Dawn Wing's Necrozma before anyone could react. Nebby shot forward to fight it, but Dawn Wing's Necrozma disappeared. Then Nebby did the one thing it could. It tore open an ultra wormhole. Everyone jumped through. Inside, they were surrounded by Poipoi, dozens of them. Ash's own Poipoi stepped forward and communicated with a Naganettle nearby, explaining that the group was there to help. Naganettle turned to the group and told them the full story. A long time ago, Necrozma in its true ultimate form had saved this world from a devastating meteor, but the cost of that battle had stripped Necrozma down to its base form and left it broken and dim. Without the light Necrozma once provided, their world had been slowly dying ever since. Now, Necrozma was hunting Lunala and Nebi, trying to absorb them both to get enough light to restore itself and their world. Ash listened to all of it, and then said there had to be another way. Instead of letting Necrozma take Nebi or Lunala, what if they gave it light directly, all of their Z power at once? Gladion agreed immediately. Dawn Wing's Necrozma found them before they were ready and went straight for Nebi. The group launched the plan on the spot. Everyone used their Z moves simultaneously, pouring everything they had into Necrozma. Necrozma fired back just as hard, and the clash was enormous. Then, through the wormhole, Tapu Koko appeared, sending its energy from Alola. At the same moment, the Aether Foundation was calling. They told him to mirror what Tapu Koko was doing and channel that energy directly. Word spread back to Alola. One by one, trainers across the islands began sending their Z power through, Pokémon and people together, everyone contributing what they had. The island Kahunas added their Z moves to the stream. Ash raised his Z ring alongside Nebi and with Gladion beside them, released the special Z move. The combined power finally reached Necrozma. Its true ultimate form emerged, radiant and complete for the first time in years. The light it released washed over the dying world around them and brought it back. Color returned, life returned. The world that had been slowly fading was suddenly young and full again. As the wormhole began to close, Ash's Poi made its decision quietly. It looked at Ash for a moment, then turned toward the other Poi around it. This was its home. Its kind was here. Ash nodded and let it go. They said goodbye without making it complicated, and the wormhole closed. The alt world. Life settled back into its usual rhythm after that. Then Tapu Koko showed up again. It wanted a battle. Ash obliged, and the two of them went at it, electricity flying in every direction until one particularly massive clash of energy tore a hole in the air beside them. Before Ash could do anything, the hole pulled him in. The place Ash landed in was wrong in a way that was hard to explain, half-eaten away at the edges. Then something enormous moved nearby. Guzzlord, an ultra beast he hadn't encountered before. He tried battling it, but it shrugged off everything he threw at it. He sent out Greninja and activated the battle bond. Then he raised his Z ring for the special Z move. Nothing happened. The crystal was dead. Before Guzzlord could press its advantage, a figure appeared from the shadows with a Zerora beside him. Together, Greninja and Zerora distracted Guzzlord long enough for everyone to run. In a safer spot, the stranger introduced himself as Daya. He told Ash this place was off-limits and then explained why. The world around them had once been full of people. Then Guzzlord arrived and started consuming everything. The Ultra Rangers had come to stop it and failed. Daya was the only one left, him and Zerora. Ash told Ash's own story and mentioned that he was part of the Ultra Guardians. Daya looked at the Pokemon Ash had with him and something shifted in his expression. He decided to trust him. As they moved through the ruined streets, Ash stopped in front of a building. He recognized the layout. It looked almost exactly like his Pokemon school back in Alola. Daya explained it quietly. They were likely in a parallel universe, a version of the same world that branched off somewhere along the way. He paused and added that there might even be versions of the world where Ash's starter had been something completely different. Ash didn't respond to that, but the thought clearly landed. Daya got back to the problem at hand. The Z-Ring wasn't working because there was no Tapu Koko in this world. Without a Guardian's energy, the crystals had nothing to draw from. They built a plan. Lure Guzzlord toward an ultra wormhole and sent it back to wherever it came from. They moved into position. When Guzzlord came after them, Ash threw an electro web and trapped it momentarily. Greninja and Zerora went straight for the weak spot, but Guzzlord broke free before they could finish it. Then a flash of light appeared above them, a shiny Tapu Koko, from where nobody could explain, descended and poured its energy directly into Ash's Z-ring. The crystal lit up. Ash and Dia moved at the same time. Pikachu and Zeraora charged up together and launched Gigavolt Havoc directly into Guzzlord's weak spot. The hit connected perfectly. Guzzlord flew backward into the wormhole and disappeared. The silence that followed felt completely different from the silence they had arrived in. Dia looked around at what was left of his world. He told Ash he would rebuild it. Ash believed him. The two of them sparred one last time, and the clash of energy between them tore another rift in the air. Ash stepped through it and landed back in his own timeline.
Pony Island. The group made their way to Pony Island, where Ash faced off against Hapu, the island kahuna. The battle was comfortable from start to finish, and Ash came away with the Steelium Z. Shortly after, a group of Meltan appeared, and one of them took a particular liking to Ash and let itself be caught. The first Alola League. The announcement came and everyone on the island talked about nothing else for days. The very first Alola Pokemon League was happening. Ash's first battle was against Faba. Meltan stepped onto the field, and when Faba tried his usual trick with Hypno's Pendulum, Meltan simply ate it. Then it finished things with Flash Cannon. Faba didn't know what had just happened. Next was Hao, the grandson of Hala. Toucanan handled his Decidueye without breaking a sweat. Then came Guzma, and Ash pushed through that battle and made it to the final. The night before the final, something happened. Every Meltan that had been following Ash came together and merged into one. Melmetal had evolved. Final. Ash versus Gladion. Gladion opened with Silvally. Ash sent out Melmetal, the newly evolved one. The two of them had a serious back and forth, but Silvally's experience and versatility proved too much, and Melmetal went down. Ash sent in Incineroar, which defeated Silvally. Gladion sent out his Lycanroc next, and Incineroar handled it, until it became clear that wasn't Lycanroc at all. It was Zoroark, and the illusion had been covering up serious damage the whole time. Incineroar had taken a heavy beating without realizing it, and was now badly hurt. Both trainers reached for the same Pokemon at the same time. Lycanroc versus Lycanroc. The difference was clear immediately. Infernape's training had given Ash's Lycanroc a level of control and discipline that showed in every exchange. Ash won the battle and took his third league title. Exhibition match, Ash versus Kukui. Professor Kukui stepped forward after the award ceremony. He was the masked royal. He challenged Ash to an exhibition match, and the whole island watched. Kukui opened with Braviary. Ash sent out Lycanroc, which won but came out of it injured. Kukui sent out Venusaur. Ash switched to Incineroar, which finished it. Empoleon came out next, and Pikachu stepped up and took it down. Then came Lucario, which Toucanan defeated cleanly. Kukui's final regular Pokemon was his own Incineroar. Ash's Incineroar went back out and won the mirror match. Then Tapu Koko landed on Kukui's shoulder and looked at Ash. Kukui smiled. It wanted in. Ash sent out Melmetal. Tapu Koko swatted it aside without much effort. Ash recalled it and looked at Greninja's Pokeball. He sent it out and activated the Battle Bond. Then he stacked his ultimate Z-move on top of it and pointed the ring at Ash Greninja. Kukui and Tapu Koko answered with their own Z-move. The two attacks met in the middle and the impact shook the entire stadium. When the dust cleared, the type advantage had been too much. Greninja went down. Ash sent out Pikachu. Tapu Koko and Pikachu had been circling each other since the day Ash arrived in Alola. Every battle, every spar, every bolt of electricity traded between them had been building to something. Pikachu launched everything it had. Tapu Koko gave everything back. Then the Z-Ring activated on its own. Both sides unleashed their final Z-moves at the same moment. When it was over, Tapu Koko was down. Ash had won. Saying goodbye.
Ash said his goodbyes to everyone, his classmates Kukui, Lusamine, Gladian, Lily. One by one, each farewell carrying the weight of everything they had been through together. Then, Nebby appeared one last time. It had come to say goodbye too. Ash stood with it for a while without saying much. Then it left, and Ash picked up his bag and headed back to Pallet Town. Professor Cerise. Ash traveled to Vermilion City with Professor Oak, his mom, and Mr. Mime to visit a new researcher, Professor Cerise. Cerise already knew who Ash was and got straight to the point. He asked if Ash would be willing to help with his research. Ash said yes without hesitating. Cerise told him about the Galar region, a place with a special power that existed nowhere else in the world. He wanted Ash to help him understand it better. In Galar, a Snorlax nearby suddenly began growing to an enormous size, its appearance shifting in ways that didn't look natural. Ash jumped in, gathered what data he could, and used Greninja's ultimate Z-move to stop it before anyone got hurt. Crisis dealt with. On the way back, a Rookidee crossed his path and picked a fight. Ash caught it. Professor Cerise's lab. Back at the lab in Kanto, Ash ran into Lance. The two of them caught up, and Lance told him about something coming up, the World Coronation Series, a global tournament that was going to take place the following year. Ash filed that away in the back of his mind. The next day, one of the professors at the lab came running out of a room looking genuinely shaken. Ash went in to find out what had happened and immediately spotted the source of the problem. A Gengar drifting around the corridors causing chaos. Pikachu hit it with a thunderbolt and it vanished. But it came back. Gengar had taken an interest in Ash specifically and kept reappearing wherever he went. Then Ash bumped into a trainer on the street and the trainer's girlfriend immediately asked if he was cursed again. The trainer explained, casually and without any guilt, that ever since he had abandoned his old Gengar, his life had turned around completely. Better results, fewer problems, happier all around. Gengar had heard every word. It went straight for the trainer. Pikachu stepped in between them. Ash turned to the trainer and told him to apologize. The trainer looked at him like he was joking, said Gengar had only ever brought him misery, and walked away. Ash looked at Gengar. It was floating there quietly now, and it looked like something that had been carrying a heavy weight for a long time. Ash offered it a spot on his team. Gengar looked at him for a long moment. It had no reason to trust any trainer. Then it floated over and let itself be caught. Training Gengar. Training with Gengar was entertaining at first. It kept trying to pull pranks on everyone around it, which was fine until Greninja became its assigned mentor. Greninja had absolutely no patience for the mischief and made that clear without saying a word. Gengar fell in line. Slowly, underneath all the attitude, something genuine started to come through. Gengar began trusting Ash in a way it clearly hadn't trusted anyone else in a long time. Meeting Alistair. Ash was sent to Stowan's side in Galar for a research errand and ran into Alistair, a young, soft-spoken gym leader who specialized in ghost types. Alistair recognized Ash immediately. He knew about Aegislash and considered it one of the finest ghost types he had ever seen. He asked if he could battle it. Ash explained that Aegislash was still in Kalos, helping restore the areas damaged during the Team Flare incident. But he had another ghost type with him. He sent out Gengar. Alistair's eyes lit up. He sent out his own Gengar. Then he noticed Ash didn't have a Dynamax band and immediately handed him a spare one. He walked Ash through the basics of Dynamax and Gigantamax. Ash put the band on and Dynamax Gengar. It shot up to a massive size, and Ash took a step back, clearly not expecting how big it actually got. Then Alistair Gigantamaxed his own Gengar, and the size difference between the two was immediately obvious. Alistair's was on a completely different scale. They had their spar, and Ash lost. Afterward, Alistair told Ash about Gigantamax. He reached into his bag and handed Ash a special soup. He said it should help Gengar unlock Gigantamax. Ash took it and thanked him. Back at the lab, Ash returned to Kanto, and was in the middle of going over his research findings with Professor Cerise when someone walked through the door and asked for him by name. She introduced herself as Iris, who asked for Ash's help. She then explained what had happened to Unova. Without Ash ever traveling there, things had gone differently. N had never broken free from Getz's influence, and Reshiram had fallen under N's control. Then Getzis had gone a step further, taking Zekrom for himself. With 2 legendary dragons under their command, Team Plasma had swept through Unova. Champions, Elite Four, every trainer who stood against them, none of it had been enough. Unova was under their control. And now, Team Plasma was looking for Curem. Their goal was to merge it with the other 2 dragons and recreate the original dragon. Iris looked at Ash and told him plainly that his Greninja was the reason she had come all this way. She needed someone who could go up against Team Plasma at that level. She was asking for his help. Ash didn't take long to think about it. He agreed and started packing.
Into Unova. The trip to Unova was quieter than Ash expected. Professor Cerise had gathered every piece of information his researchers had on Team Plasma's recent movements, but it wasn't much. Since taking control of most of Unova, Plasma had become extremely careful. Entire routes were under surveillance, and anyone openly challenging them tended to disappear before long. Rather than fly directly into the heart of the region, Ash and Iris landed on the outskirts and traveled on foot. The atmosphere was different. Plasma banners hung from buildings. Patrols of grunts moved through the streets with military precision. Desert Resort. To avoid Team Plasma's patrol routes, Iris led Ash through the Desert Resort. Then the sand ahead of them exploded, and a shiny drill bore burst out of the dunes with a sharp, piercing cry. Ash's eyes lit up. He battled it quickly and cleanly and caught it without breaking a sweat. Iris watched the whole thing and then looked at Ash's team properly for the first time. She asked him where the rest of his Pokémon were, the ones she had heard about, the ones that won leagues and stopped legendary crises. Ash told her this was his team. Iris stared at him. He was walking into Unova-controlled territory with a brand new roster and acting like it was completely fine. Ash told her he had everything under control. Iris didn't look convinced and said nothing more, but the look on her face said plenty. They reached Nimbaso Town and kept their heads down immediately. Iris reminded Ash that his reputation had reached Unova long before he had, and under Team Plasma's control, being recognized was the last thing they needed. They slipped through the streets quietly and found their way to a hidden base on the edge of town. Inside, a trainer with an Alakazam was waiting. Without any explanation, Alakazam teleported the entire group directly to Humilau City. Meeting Drayden. The base in Humilau City was larger and better concealed. Inside, a broad, intimidating man stood waiting. Drayden, one of Unova's most respected Dragon Masters. He got straight to the point. Team Plasma moved fast and hit hard. Every gym leader and every member of the Elite Four had been captured. Worse, Team Plasma had tracked Kyrem's location to the Giant Chasm, and they were already heading there. If they reached Kyrem first and merged it with Reshiram and Zekrom, there would be nothing left to fight for. Then Drayden looked at what Ash had brought with him. He turned to Ash and made his frustration very clear. This was not the time for a fresh team. Ash met his eyes calmly and told him to trust him. Drayden didn't look satisfied, but there was no time to argue. They moved out. Giant Chasm. The group reached the Giant Chasm and ran into Team Plasma grunts almost immediately. They pushed through them without too much difficulty and pressed further inside. Then they stopped. 2 figures stood in front of them. One wore an eye patch. The other was tall and thin, with green hair and an eerie stillness about him. Ash looked at them and understood instantly who he was dealing with.
He sent out Greninja and activated the battle bond without a word. Beside him, Iris and Drayden responded immediately. Dragonite and Salamence appeared, and both Mega evolved at the same time. N and Ghetsis said nothing. They released Reshiram and Zekrom. The two ancient dragons filled the chasm with their roars, and the ground trembled beneath everyone's feet. The battle that followed was unlike anything the group had faced before. Reshiram and Zekrom hit with a weight that made every counter feel insufficient. The pressure kept building, and Ash reached for Gengar in desperation, trying to Gigantamax it on the spot. Nothing happened. Ash threw Gengar and Pikachu into the fight anyway, and both of them gave everything they had. Then, Ghetsis sent out Hydreigon and Mega evolved it. The battlefield shifted completely. Iris and Drayden threw every Pokémon they had at them, but Ghetsis and N were operating on a level that made all of it feel insufficient. Their Pokémon were going down one by one. Ash raised his Z-Ring. Greninja locked in, and the ultimate Z-move launched, connecting with both Reshiram and Zekrom at once and hitting them hard enough to make them stagger. The momentum shifted. The group pushed back, and for a brief moment, it felt like they might actually hold their ground. Then, Ghetsis pulled Reshiram and Zekrom back and grabbed the DNA splicer. He and N slipped deeper into the chasm while Team Plasma grunts flooded in to cover their escape. Ash, Iris, and Drayden fought through every single one of them. But deep in the chasm, Kyurem was pinned. The DNA splicer connected, and the air in the chasm changed completely. The original dragon. Ghetsis and Anne came back to the battlefield with it. The moment it appeared, everything felt different. Ash Greninja went straight at it. It made no difference. Greninja went down. Every remaining Pokémon followed. In a matter of minutes, the group had nothing left standing. Team Plasma closed in. Then, Alder appeared from the side and pulled everyone out before Team Plasma could take them. But the original dragon had already locked onto them and was gaining fast with every second. Greninja burst out of its Pokeball on its own. It looked back at Ash for just a moment. Then it turned toward the dragon and stood its ground between the group and what was coming. No order had been given. It had made its own decision. Greninja held the dragon off long enough for everyone to escape. But when the dust settled and they were finally clear, Greninja was gone. It had been captured. The group made it back to Nimbasa town, and as soon as they were inside, Drayden turned to Ash. He didn't hold back. He told Ash straight. His overconfidence had cost them everything. They had gone into the giant chasm with a fresh, untested team against the two most dangerous people in Unova, and it had gone exactly how it was always going to go. Greninja was captured because of that. Ash didn't argue. He knew Drayden was right. He was quiet, and it was obvious the loss of Greninja was hitting him hard. He said he needed to get to a Pokémon Center and call back his original team. Alder stopped him. Every Pokémon Center in Unova was under Team Plasma's control. Walking into one meant walking into a trap. The only safe option was to go back to Kanto and get his Pokémon from there. Then Drayden turned on Alder and told him his showing up late made everything worse. Alder didn't argue either. Getting out of Unova was harder than getting in. Team Plasma had flagged them, and they had to avoid every main route to make it out. They got through eventually, but it wasn't clean. Back in Kanto. Back in Pallet Town, Professor Oak was waiting with someone next to him, Agatha, one of Kanto's Elite Four. Oak explained that Agatha had been keeping an eye on Ash's journey and wanted to personally train him and his Gengar. Ash agreed, and they got to work. Every day, Ash trained alongside Gengar under Agatha's guidance. Gengar grew fast, sharper, stronger, and much more confident than before. During this time, Ash called Alistair and asked why Gigamantax had failed back in the chasm. Alistair explained it simply. Gigamantax only works in Galar. The energy that makes it possible only exists there. Then Professor Oak came to Ash with urgent news. Team Plasma was heading to Kalos and going straight for the ancient weapon. There was no time to waste. Ash made quick decisions. Rookie D and Drillbor stayed behind. They weren't ready for this. He was bringing his strongest Pokémon, but could only take 6 at a time. He thought back to something Agatha had shown him during training and smiled. He had a way around that. The War Zone. They flew to Kalos on a private jet and landed just in time. Already there were Lance, Cynthia, Steven, and Leon, the champion of Galar. Diantha was holding the line at the ancient weapon alongside the Kalos Elite Four. Everyone moved in together. The battlefield was pure chaos. Pokémon and attacks everywhere, trainers fighting on every side. Getsis, N, and the 7 Sages were all fighting at champion level, and standing with them was someone Ash recognized straight away, Tobias. In the middle of everything, the Pokémon causing the most damage to their side was Greninja, completely under Getsis's control. The champions each took on one of the 7 Sages. Then, Tobias turned toward Ash. Rayquaza launched Dragon Ascent straight at him, and a Pokémon stepped in front of it and blocked it without flinching. Aegislash had come when it was needed. Gengar floated beside Ash, watching Aegislash with wide eyes. Then, it was Gengar's turn. It dropped into Ash's shadow. The shadow spread across the ground and Pokémon started stepping out of it one by one. Charizard, Venusaur, Snorlax, Heracross, Blaziken, Gardevoir, Sceptile, Swallow, Garchomp, Bronzong, Infernape, Frostlass, Talonflame, Dragalge, Pangoro, Toucan, Incineroar, Melmetal, and Lycanroc. That was the trick Agatha had taught him. Ash raised his Mega Ring. Charizard, Venusaur, Heracross, Sceptile, Frostlass, and Dragalge all Mega evolved at the same time. 3 Mega Pokémon were new to everyone. Oak had been quietly holding on to them and handed them over to Ash. The entire battlefield went silent. Every trainer on both sides stopped and stared. Mega evolving even one Pokémon at a time takes everything a trainer has. Ash had just done 6 at once, without even breaking any sweat. Then, Blaziken's speed boost started stacking. Infernape had Blaze at full health. Lycanroc went into rage mode. N stepped in to help Tobias because Ash's side was simply too much for one person. They sent in the original dragon alongside Greninja. Even with everything Ash had brought, Mega Rayquaza and the original dragon together were too powerful. His Pokémon were fighting hard but slowly losing ground, and every time Ash called out to Greninja, nothing came back. It was completely lost in Getsis's control and couldn't hear him at all. Then, a wormhole opened in the sky. Naganadel, who had evolved from Poipole and Nebby, came through and jumped straight into the fight. The 2 sides became even again. Getsis stepped onto the battlefield himself and sent out Mega Hydreigon. Team Plasma started pulling ahead again. Ash closed his eyes. He blocked out everything around him and focused inward, reaching for the bonds between him and Greninja that had always been there. He found it. And inside it, he could see what Getsis had done. Greninja was trapped in an illusion made from its oldest pain, being the Froakie that nobody wanted, the one that was always treated differently by its own kind. It was completely lost in it. Ash pushed through it. He didn't shout. He just reached for Greninja the same way he always had. Greninja felt it. The illusion broke. Greninja came back to itself and the battle bond activated right there on the spot. Ash Greninja turned on Mega Hydreigon and finished it in one go. Everything shifted. Nebby went after Rayquaza and held its ground until Rayquaza started overpowering it. Then Garchomp hit from behind with Draco Meteor. Mega Charizard, Infernape, Lycanroc, and Blaziken all attacked together, and Rayquaza went down. The original dragon roared. Then Ash spotted something behind the Team Plasma lines, a machine. That was what had been controlling Greninja, and Team Plasma were pointing more of them at Pokémon all across the battlefield to turn them against their trainers. They fired. Ash felt something stir inside him, the same feeling he had felt back in Galar when he first ran into the Gigantamax Snorlax. He looked at Gengar. He raised the Dynamax band. This time, it worked. Gengar Gigantamaxed. The control rays hit the shadow, and Gengar swallowed every single one and sent the force straight back. The machines blew up. The moment the machines went down, N's eyes cleared, then Tobias's. Whatever had been sitting over them lifted, and both of them looked around at what they had been part of. Without saying anything, both of them turned and stood against Team Plasma. Getsis and the Seven Sages made their last stand. Gigantamax Gengar went straight at Original Dragon, while Nebby and Naganadel hit from both sides. The damage kept building, but the Original Dragon kept soaking it up and pushing everyone back. Nothing was finishing it. Ash raised his Z-Ring one last time. Ash Greninja locked in and launched the Shuriken Cannon with everything behind it. It connected. The Original Dragon went down. Team Plasma fell apart. Getsis and the Seven Sages were captured. The Original Dragon split back into Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem, and all three of them went their separate ways.
After the battle, Ash found N and Tobias in the crowd afterward. Both of them were themselves again, and both thanked him simply and honestly. Drayden came through the crowd and walked straight to Ash. He held out an egg and told him that since Ash clearly loved starting fresh with new Pokémon, this was the best gift he could think of. Ash took it and looked at it quietly for a moment. Then everyone went their separate ways.
After Team Plasma. With Team Plasma finally done, Ash got back to running errands for Professor Cerise. During this time, he met Go, who quickly became his partner and travel companion. The egg Drayden had given him also hatched around this time. Out came a dino, who was blind. Ash welcomed it onto his new roster without hesitation. During this time, Rookidee had evolved into Corvisquire while Ash was training it. World Coronation Series. Lance showed up at the lab one day and got straight to the point. The World Coronation Series was starting, and based on everything Ash had done, Lance felt Ash deserved to be placed directly into the Master 8 without having to climb the ranks. Ash turned it down. He wanted to start from the bottom like everyone else. Lance shook his head but registered him anyway and explained how the ranking system worked. Ash's first battle was against a substitute for Lieutenant Surge. He sent out Drillbur against Raichu and won without much trouble. Then the trainer sent out Electrode, which used Explosion, taking both Pokémon down with it. Ash was ruled the winner since he still had Pokémon standing. His new ranking landed at 3763. His next opponent was Oliver, who was clearly nervous about battling someone with Ash's reputation and didn't want to fight at all. Ash made it easier on him and sent out Dino, his least experienced Pokémon. The battle was rough from the start. Dino was blind and had almost no battle experience, and things looked like they were going sideways fast. Then Ash had an idea. He reached for the bond between them, the same way he had learned to connect with Greninja, and used it to guide Dino through the battle. Dino couldn't see, but through the bond, it could sense everything around it. It started dodging Meganium's attacks cleanly and hitting back with precision. A Dragon Breath paralyzed Meganium, and one Body Slam finished it off. Ash's ranking went up. Against Hayden's Tauros, Corvisquire handled it comfortably. When Ash traveled to Talos for another battle, he used Drillbur against the trainer's Clawitzer, a type disadvantage on purpose to keep things fair. Drillbur dug deep and won, evolving into Excalibur in the process. Nearby, he spotted Karina, and they had a quick battle. Corvisquire dealt with Mienfoo but lost to Lucario. Ash sent out Gengar, who defeated Lucario even through its Mega Evolution. Ash's ranking jumped to 921, moving him from the normal class all the way up to the Great class. The battle against B. A few smaller battles pushed Ash's ranking to 890. Then came the toughest matchup yet, a trainer known as B, who, despite being a gym leader, was considered Elite 4 level by everyone who knew her. Ash sent out Dino against her Howlucha. Even with the bond connection guiding it through the fight, Howlucha was too much. The pressure pushed Dino past its limit and it evolved mid-battle into Zuelos, but even that wasn't enough and it lost. Something caught Ash's attention during that battle though. When he connected with Zuelos through the bond, he felt two presences instead of one, two minds sharing a single body, constantly pushing against each other. Bee was clearly frustrated. She told Ash to stop holding back and demanded he use Greninja. Ash refused and sent out Corvisquire instead, which swept Howlucha quickly. Then came Graplocked, a serious battle that pushed Corvisquire to its limit before it finally went down. Ash's first loss since Tobias. Ash smiled. Bee was furious. She demanded a rematch immediately. Rotom Phone denied the request and Ash's ranking adjusted to 930.
More battles followed, and Ash's ranking kept climbing. During this stretch, Corvisquire evolved into Corvic Knight. Ash also noticed something troubling with Zuelos. Its two heads were constantly fighting each other, bickering and clashing. Then Greninja stepped up. Even though Zuelos was blind, both heads could sense Greninja's aura immediately. Whatever they felt from it was enough to make them both settle down and fall in line. The rematch with Bee. Ash and Go traveled back to Johto for the rematch. This time, Ash opened with Corvic Knight, which redeemed itself against Hitmontop. Then Bee sent out Graplocked and Ash responded with Zuelos. The moment Zuelos hit the field, both heads immediately turned on each other instead of Graplocked. Bee watched with a confused expression. Then a Pokeball click echoed from behind Ash. Both of Zuelos' heads froze. They turned toward the sound slowly. Greninja was standing behind Ash, watching them with that sharp, quiet look it always had. Both heads snapped back toward Graplocked and attacked together properly for the first time. Bee was stunned by what she was seeing. She learned she couldn't match Greninja at her current level, but she was determined to someday surpass it. Then, Graplock grabbed one of Zuelos' heads with its grappling move and locked it in place. But the other head was completely free. It charged up a Dragon Pulse and knocked Graplocked out cleanly. Then something happened. The head that had landed the winning blow let out a long, loud roar, a sound of pure dominance. Light surrounded Zuelos and it began to change, the two heads becoming arms, a new central head emerging, the blindness gone completely. Zuelos had evolved into Dano's final form, Hydreigon, and it was looking at the world properly for the very first time. Zacian and Zamenta. While out on separate errands, Ash and Go each had a strange encounter in the forest. A legendary Pokémon appeared to each of them individually, Zacian to one, Zamenta to the other. Neither of the legendaries attacked, they just looked, as if they were trying to communicate something that words couldn't carry. Both Ash and Go walked away from it feeling like they had missed something important. Gigantamax Crisis. Coming out of the forest, Ash and Go looked up at the sky. Comets were falling, and wherever they landed, Pokémon were randomly Gigantamaxing against their will. Ash spotted a Centiskorch and defeated it to bring it back to normal. Then, Leon landed beside him on his Charizard. He had been dealing with outbreaks all across Galar and needed help. He had heard enough about Ash to not hesitate asking. The two of them split up and worked through as many Gigantamax outbreaks as they could find. Afterward, Leon introduced Ash to Chairman Rose and his assistant Oleana. Rose was using Galar's energy resources to trigger Gigantamax outbreaks deliberately. His plan was to use this accumulated power to resurrect an ancient Pokémon called Eternatus and harvest its energy to power Galar indefinitely. Leon grew suspicious and went to check Rose's power plant personally. What he found confirmed everything. Rose was behind all of it, and as Leon was piecing it together, Eternatus broke free from the core and emerged on its own. Meanwhile, Go had found something in the forest, a rusty sword and a rusty shield. He grabbed both and kept them with him without fully understanding why. Eternatus. When Leon and Ash confronted Rose, he urged both of them to capture Eternatus and use it as a power source rather than sealing it away. Leon refused immediately and said Eternatus needed to be sealed. Rose sent out Ferrothorn and Copperajah. Ash sent out Excalibur and Hydreigon. Excalibur knocked out Copperajah in one shot. Hydreigon's flamethrower finished Ferrothorn without much effort. Then, Eternatus transformed into Eternamax form. The power coming off it was on a completely different level. It swept Leon aside before he could react. Ash had no other option. He sent out Greninja and activated the Battle Bond. He stacked the Shuriken Cannon on top of it and launched everything at Eternamax Eternatus. It barely left a scratch. Ash and Greninja both stood there trying to process what had just happened. Go ran over and handed Ash the rusty sword, keeping the rusty shield for himself. Both items began glowing the moment they were held. The forest behind them rustled, and Zacian and Zamazenta emerged, drawn by the swords and shield that belonged to them. With the two legendaries fighting alongside everyone, Eternatus weakened enough to be captured. The moment it was secured, every Pokémon across Galar returned to their normal size at once. Galar was safe. The legendaries turned and walked back into the forest, and Chairman Rose went into hiding.
Climbing the ranks. Ash kept battling, and his ranking steadily climbed to 184. During this stretch, he received a letter from Iris. She was competing in the same tournament and wanted to battle him. Ash and Go packed up and headed to Unova. The difference from their last visit was impossible to miss. The streets were busy and full of life. People were smiling. The weight that Team Plasma had put over everything was completely gone. When they arrived, Excadrill popped out of its Pokeball on its own and made straight for a desert nearby. It started digging before anyone could say anything. Go turned to Ash and asked if he was just going to let it go like that? No goodbye, nothing? Ash told him this had happened before and to just wait. About an hour later, Excadrill came back, climbed out of the sand, and dropped the stone into Ash's hand. Go looked at it and asked what it was. Ash told him, a Megastone. Drayden and Iris. Drayden found them before they had gone far and immediately asked about the egg he had given Ash. Ash told him a Dino had hatched. Drayden nodded. Then Ash added that it had since evolved into Hydreigon. Drayden stared at him. He asked how that was even possible in such a short time. Ash just smiled. Drayden took them to Iris, who was now the champion of Unova. Iris and Ash faced off immediately. Ash opened with Hydreigon, and Iris sent out Haxorus. The two dragon types went at each other hard and ended in a double knockout. Iris sent out Dragonite. Ash sent out Excadrill. Iris relaxed a little when she saw it wasn't Greninja. Ash told her Greninja was saved for tougher matchups. Then Iris Mega evolved her Dragonite. Ash held up his Mega Ring. Excadrill blowed. Iris had clearly underestimated Excadrill, and it felt every bit of that. It wound up Horndrill and landed it clean. One-hit knockout on Mega Dragonite. Ash's ranking jumped to 99. He was now in the Ultra class. The two of them shook hands and went their separate ways. Volkner. Ash traveled to Sinnoh for a battle against Volkner, who was in a completely different headspace from the last time they had met. The motivation that had faded before was fully back, and he was hungry for a good battle. Volkner opened with Luxray. Gengar handled it quickly. Rotom Fan came out next, and Excadrill took care of it without much trouble. Then Volkner sent out Electivire and asked if Ash had his Infernape for a rematch. Ash shook his head and sent out Pikachu instead. Electivire Mega evolved. It gave Pikachu a genuinely tough fight, but Pikachu pulled out the Z move and pushed through. Ash's ranking moved to 64. Rematch with Bia. Bia had not forgotten her first battle. She had been training harder than ever since then with one goal in mind, beating Ash and his Hydreigon. She came ready. She opened with Grappalocked. Corviknight swept it without much difficulty. Bia sent out Hawlucha, which turned the tables and defeated Corviknight. Ash sent out Hydreigon, which handled Hawlucha. Then Bia sent out Machamp and Gigantamaxed it. Machamp knocked out Hydreigon. Ash answered with Gengar and Gigantamaxed it in response.
The two Gigantamax Pokémon went at each other, and Gengar came out on top. Ash's ranking moved to 36. Reuniting with Dawn and Brock. Ash and Go stayed in Sinnoh a little longer and met up with Dawn and Brock. Then things got complicated. Team Galactic had been quietly active again and had managed to capture Heatran. They had infused it with the fire plate of Arceus, which had made it dramatically more powerful than it had any right to be. They sent it out to cause havoc across the region. Arceus noticed. It sent the Lake Trio to investigate. Azelf reached out to Ash and the group through telepathy and explained what was happening. Then Azelf paused and told Ash something else. It was surprised by how much of Ash's aura had grown and refined itself since the last time they had connected. When the group found Heatran, the power coming off it was enormous. Ash sent out Greninja, activated the Battle Bond, and launched the ultimate Z move. It hit clean and broke Team Galactic's hold on Heatran. The Pokémon came back to itself, and Team Galactic was stopped. Azelf turned to Ash one last time before leaving. It told him simply that he had faced threat after threat in this world, and that both he and Greninja had saved it more times than most people would ever know. It wished him well. Then the Lake Trio was gone. Master 8. Ash defeated Ryan and secured his place in the top 8 of the World Coronation Series. The Master 8 lineup was confirmed. Leon, Cynthia, Steven, Lance, Diantha, Iris, Tobias, Ash. The results came in fast. Leon defeated Lance. Cynthia defeated Iris. Tobias defeated Diantha. Then it was Ash versus Steven. Steven opened with Metagross. Ash sent out Hydreigon. The type advantage was doing its work until Steven switched to Aggron and both Pokémon knocked each other out at the same time. Steven sent out Cradily. Ash answered with Gengar, who finished it without much trouble. Steven brought Metagross back out. Ash sent Pikachu. Metagross Mega Evolved, and Ash immediately responded with 10 million volt Thunderbolt. That was the end of it. Ash was through to the semifinal. Ash versus Leon. Leon offered Ash permission to use every power-up he had. Ash turned it down. He told Leon he would use only one. Leon smiled and accepted it. Leon opened with Cinderace. Ash sent out Pikachu. The two went back and forth until both trainers swapped at the same moment, simultaneously. Leon sent out Inteleon. Ash sent out Gengar, who defeated it quickly. Leon sent out Mr. Rime, who used Terrain to its advantage and took Gengar down. Ash sent in Excadrill, who dug underground and destroyed the terrain from below, taking Mr. Rime out with it. Dragapult came out next. Ash swapped to Hydreigon, who handled it. Leon sent out Rillaboom, which knocked Hydreigon out. Corviknight came in and swept Rillaboom cleanly, but then fell to Cinderace coming back around. Excadrill stepped up, Mega Evolved, and went back and forth with Cinderace before finally taking it down. Leon sent out Charizard and Gigantamaxed it. Mega Excadrill went down. Pikachu stepped up and the two had an intense battle, but the Gigantamax power kept giving Charizard the edge and Pikachu eventually fell. Ash looked at his last Pokeball. He sent out Greninja, but chose not to use the Battle Bond. He needed Greninja's full strength saved for the final. Greninja and Gigantamax Charizard had an intense back and forth that had everyone watching on the edge of their seats. In the end, Greninja closed it out. Ash had beaten Leon. The other semifinal was something else entirely. Tobias had lost badly to Cynthia the last time they had met and had clearly spent every moment since then preparing for exactly this rematch. He came with a Mega Ring, a Z-Ring, and a Dynamax Band, and used all three during the match. This time, Tobias won. Cynthia accepted the loss graciously. After the battle, Tobias came straight to Ash. He told him simply, go all out. Use his strongest Pokémon. No holding back from either of them. This was the one that mattered. Ash agreed. The final. Ash versus Tobias. Tobias opened with Darkrai. Ash sent out Aegislash.
Ash knew exactly what Darkrai's Dark Void was capable of. He had seen it before. He kept Aegislash moving through the shadows to stay out of range. Darkrai did the same, matching every dodge. Eventually, it caught Aegislash, and Dark Void landed. Aegislash's instincts kicked in immediately. King Shield activated and repelled the move on the spot. Then, Aegislash landed a critical Sacred Sword, and Darkrai went down. Tobias sent out Latios. Ash swapped to Pikachu. These two had history, a brutal double knockout the last time they had met, and neither of them had forgotten it. Tobias reached for his Z-Ring. Ash raised his at the same moment. Latios' Luster Purge and 10 million volt Thunderbolt collided in the middle of the field. When the smoke cleared, both Pokémon were down. Same result as before. Tobias sent out Heatran. Ash sent out Infernape. Heatran set up Iron Defense and Stealth Rock and sat back. Ash chipped away at it steadily, but this Heatran was significantly bulkier than anything Infernape had faced before. Then Heatran landed Toxic, and the poison started draining Infernape fast. Ash triggered Blaze, which cleared the Stealth Rock as well. The power boost that came with it pushed Infernape's close combat past Heatran's enormous bulk, and it went down. Tobias sent out Urshifu, Single Strike form, and Gigantamaxed it immediately. It was too powerful for even a blazing Infernape to manage cleanly, but Infernape had already dealt serious damage before going down. Ash sent out Gengar and Gigantamaxed it. The type advantage was in Urshifu's favor, but both Pokémon gave absolutely everything in their final exchange and knocked each other out simultaneously. Tobias was genuinely surprised. Ash could have used hit-and-run tactics to stall out Gigantamax Urshifu's timer and save Gengar. Ash told him straight, this was the final. He wasn't going to play it safe. He wanted Tobias at his absolute best, and he wanted to beat that. Tobias was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. He sent out Tyranitar. Ash sent out Sceptile. The two of them stared each other down from opposite ends of the field. Both trainers Mega evolved at the same moment. Mega Tyranitar was stronger than Ash expected. It had been trained hard since they last met. But Mega Sceptile dug in and came out on top, though it was worn down badly in the process. Tobias sent out Rayquaza. Ash sent out Aegislash. These two had crossed paths in the chaos of the Kalos War, and neither had forgotten it. Rayquaza launched Dragon Ascent. Aegislash raised King Shield, but Rayquaza had learned from last time. It changed direction mid-flight and hit Aegislash from behind. Then Mega evolved in the process. Aegislash went down. Ash sent out Mega Sceptile. Rayquaza knocked it out, but Leech Seed was already planted to Rayquaza. Ash reached for his last Pokeball. Greninja. Battle Bond activated. The stadium went completely silent for a moment. Then the noise hit all at once. This was the battle everyone had been waiting for, the one that would decide the strongest trainer in the world, the one that would decide whether Ash Ketchum was a Pokémon master. Then Tapu Koko descended onto the battlefield. Its energy poured into both Z-Rings simultaneously. One last charge for both of them. Ash Greninja and Mega Rayquaza went at each other with everything they had. The Leech Seed kept pulling from Rayquaza and feeding Greninja just enough to keep going. Tobias saw it. He knew the longer this went, the more the seed would tip things. He decided to end it. Rayquaza launched its ultimate Dragon Ascent as a Z-move. Ash raised his ring and launched the Shuriken Cannon. The two attacks met in the middle of the field, and the explosion that followed shook the entire stadium. When the smoke cleared, both Pokémon were still standing, barely. Greninja's legs were shaking. Then, a small green light pulsed quietly from the field. The Leech Seed, one final heal, came clutch at the last moment. Rayquaza went down. Ash had won the World Coronation Series. The end. Ash stood on the battlefield looking around at everything quietly. He had won the World Coronation Series. He was the best trainer in the world by every measure that existed. But was he a Pokémon master? He wasn't sure yet.
And that question, the one that had been following him since the very beginning, was still worth chasing. So he picked up his bag and decided to find the answer. And that is where we end the series. This journey has been an incredible one to put together, and the love and support shown along the way has meant everything. There is more content coming in the future, so stay tuned everyone. Until then, peace out.